to the Tuesday, February 23rd meeting of the Carrboro Town Council. We'll start off our meeting, Kathy, with our official roll call.
Right, sorry, I know my fan is on again, so just bear with me when I'm live, the buzzing sound. Mayor Lydia Lavelle.
Present.
Council Member and Mayor Pro Tem Barbara Foushee.
Present.
Council Member Jacqueline Gist.
Present.
Council Member Randy Haven O'Donnell.
Present.
Council Member Susan Romaine.
Present. Council
Member Damon Siles.
Present.
And Council Member Sammy Slade.
Present.
All right, great. So let's we'll start out our meeting with our poetry reading. I believe Latoya Hankins is supposed to be our guest poet tonight. Is she coming over?
Yes, and so tonight, if you are in the attendees participation, we cannot see you or hear you, but when it is your turn to speak, I will allow you to come over as a panelist. Your screen will change for a second, it will drop. Don't worry, don't touch anything, you'll just be promoted. When you come back in, you'll be able to unmute and turn your camera on. And there she is, okay.
Hello, Latoya, can you hear us?
I can. Hi. Oh my God, this is here.
Yeah. Good evening. Are you? We can hear you. Can't see you unless you're going to keep your camera off.
If you can just give me a minute. I thought my camera was on, and I think when I went away and now I'm back, I'm turning my camera back on. So if you can just indulge me for a minute.
Awesome. Technology
is not my friend today. It would seem, unfortunately, but hey, I'm here.
There you go. We can see you. Thanks for joining us.
Lovely.
Guest poet tonight. So.
Yes, I'm very excited. So again, thank you for the opportunity. So I guess I can just jump right in.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Lavelle, Mayor Pro Tem Foushee, members of the Carrboro Town Council, town staff, and citizens. I'm Latoya Hankins, a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Eta Phi Zeta Chapter, SORA. Barbara Foushee currently serves as our chapter president. Our chapter has been part of the Chapel Hill Orange County community since 1974, personifying scholarship, service, sisterhood, and finding womanhood. Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated was founded on the campus of Howard University on January 16th, 1920, by 5 collegiate students known to our membership as the 5 Pearls. We are an international band of members who espouse the motto of being a community conscious, action-oriented organization. During our 101 years, we have made historical strides, including being the first national Pan-Hellenic organization to establish a chapter in Africa, the only national Pan-Hellenic organization to be constitutionally bound by fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and the first organization to organize our auxiliary group. We offer service programs that impacts our community from birth through our national partnership with the March of Dimes to the later years through our signature elder care initiative. During the last full week in February and the entire month of March, we observe and celebrate finding womanhood. During this time, we reflect and celebrate our achievements and draw closer to our organization's founding principles. The poem that I'm going to do tonight, Finding the Finer, draws inspiration from the observation. Finding the finer. Finer is not easily defined. Trust me, I checked. One source gives it as being superior to another of the same class or set or kind in excellence. Another source explains it as being in good health and feeling well, worthy of eliciting admiration. Still another source gives its meaning as being categorized by elegance or refinement or accomplishments. All of these meanings are suitable for situations, but for me, finer is more than just a word worth 9 points in Scrabble. It is a commitment to being there for others by giving of your time, talent, and treasure. It is exhibiting grace when challenged by those who question your suitability for a task you know you're qualified to perform. It is standing up when it's more comfortable to remain seated and let the status quo continue. Finer to me is the encouraging of educational endeavors because knowledge is the ultimate power source. It is about valuing the concept of scholarship, because a legacy of learning creates a future filled with potential and possibilities. To that end, it is about making a commitment to make sure that in all things, the pursuit of education should not be limited by lesser things such as money. Where there is a desire to learn, there will be those who commit to making it a reality. It's called being finer. Finer to me is striving for a new way of being of service. It is helping other people to excel by amplifying the voices of those sometimes not heard, the young, the elderly, those who claim our same citizenship, and those separated by time zones who share our ambition of a better existence. It is traveling across town, across continents, to make sure those who want are replenished. Finer is being the backbone and heartbeat for your sister. It is being the voice of assurance, hugs of support, and the nudge to motivate. It is sisterhood typified by finding your support network among women who speak different languages, worship different higher powers unknown at all, embrace the rainbow of possibilities when it comes to claiming love. It is knowing that no matter when she became a sister of the dove, being finer always means helping your sister soar. Finer womanhood is a state of mind. It is seeking help to live your life such that it is an example for others to follow. It is not accepting that just because it's never been done before doesn't mean it can't be achieved. It's about being in the room where it happened because you create the opportunity, encouraged others to participate. It is not resting on your laurels, but instead of seeking to maximize the next opportunity. In the words of my Sarah and literary genius of the South, Zora Neale Hurston, being finer is embodying the motto, those that don't got it can't show it, and those that got it can't hide it. Finding finer is allowing yourself the time to shine and realizing in your brilliance, you illuminate everyone around you. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's council meeting, and I wish you a well Tuesday.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Latoya.
Thank you.
This evening for a nice long council meeting and a great way to close out the month. Really, we've had fabulous guest speakers this month. Really inspirational, really powerful. Again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Appreciate it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So let's see. Council members, before I mention something, Randy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, I want to thank Latoya because I never had the opportunity to be a sorority sister. Now I know what I missed. I mean, it's really about being fine and about love. So thank you for that. That was great. I wanted to mention that today Lawrence Ferlinghetti passed. He was 101. He was a poet. Many people associated him with San Francisco and the North Beach City Lights bookstore, the iconic paperback bookstore in San Francisco. But I don't know how many people realize he was a J School graduate at UNC. And that's where he did his undergraduate work. And yeah, it's just, if you get a chance to read Coney Island of the Mind, and in particular, I Am Waiting, it's well worth reading. It was written, I think, in 1956, published maybe 1957, but it is so relevant even today. And to Ferlinghetti, I just say, we await a new rebirth of wonder. So thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Randy. Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so tonight, so we don't have any resolutions or proclamations. Before we get to upcoming meetings, I wanted to just very quickly just say something to the council about this email I sent out last Thursday or Friday about the census and elections. Does everyone remember seeing that? Okay, so just wanted to kind of put that out there so everyone was like aware of it. And my understanding is, and we'll probably find out something about this very soon in the next couple of weeks, that because of the census, local elections will definitely be delayed this fall in a lot of jurisdictions. And there's some talk that they will delay all local jurisdictions until like next May. So Kathy, do you have anything else you want to add to that? She and I were in on this meeting with the Metropolitan Mayors Coalition, and there was an article in the paper about it too. And at first when I read it, I thought, it only applied to cities that have district representation. But as conversation has continued about this over the last several days, it's kind of a really complex issue in a lot of ways for boards of election. And it turns out that one of the possibilities might be that all local elections would be postponed from this November to next May. Just wanted to put that out there for those of us that are elected officials. So, Susan, yes.
Yes, I have just one quick question. So if the elections were postponed, would the municipal elections be held at the same time as the state federal elections in 2022, or do those have to be held at a different time?
Yeah, I think that all of this is really kind of a moving target right now. But as I understand it, one of the thoughts is maybe having local elections like in May. So, not next November, but maybe in May, like the old primary time or something. But again, it's all speculation right now as to whether it will happen, and if it does, when it would be moved to. But that concern has definitely been raised, that local elections would just kind of get subsumed in the Senate race and everything else. So we'll have to stay tuned, y'all. So just want to put that out there for everyone. So, okay. So announcement of upcoming meetings, Kathy?
Yes, between now and your next meeting, the Carrboro Tourism Development Authority will meet Monday the 1st at 3 p.m. The Human Services public hearing will be held Monday the 1st at 6:15 p.m. The Youth Advisory Board will meet Tuesday the 2nd at 4:30 p.m. And then you all will meet next Tuesday the 2nd at 7 p.m.
Okay. All right. Very good. Does anyone else have anything else to add to that agenda of meetings coming up? Okay. All right. Very good. So requests from speakers for the floor. I know we have several folks signed up to speak on matters on our printed agenda. I don't think we have anyone on the list you gave me, Kathy, to speak on a matter not on the printed agenda. So, all right. That being the case, then we'll move on to the consent agenda, Mr. Manager.
Okay, Mayor and members of the council, you have 3 items on your agenda. The first item is approval of the minutes from February the 9th with amendments as offered by Mayor Lavelle. The second item is appointments to the Arts Commission. You have 7 seats open, and this would appoint 6 members, those being Bestwick, Crispin, Daly, Freilich, Merritt, and Rovine. And then the third and last item would be appointments to the Economic Sustainability Commission. There are 5 seats that are open, and you would appoint 4 members, those being Shepperson, Stepinski, Dar, and Jesse. Mayor.
All right, thank you. And also, as for the minutes, I think Susan also sent in an edit to the meeting, to the minutes also. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see, Sammy? Sammy, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'll pull 2, but I'll refer to 3 also. I'll pull 2 and 3.
Okay, motion for 1 by Barbara, second by Susan. All in favor, say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
Me, aye. Barbara?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
And then Sammy.
Aye.
Okay, so you have comments about 2 and 3?
Yeah, just very quickly, we're filling all the vacant seats except for 1 for each of these advisory boards, and looking at our goals in terms of diversity. I just encourage us to be looking at filling the remaining seats where we're most lacking. So I just wanted to mention that for both of those. Having said that, I will move both 2 and 3.
Great, thank you, Sammy. Motion by Sammy, second by Damon. All in favor, say aye. Randy? Damon? Me,
Aye.
aye. Barbara?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
And Sammy?
Aye.
All right, great. All right, Mr. Manager, on to the next item.
Okay, so the next item on your agenda is a public hearing for the land use ordinance text amendment relating to stormwater management regulations. And I believe Tina is going to make the staff report, even though it could be Marty or Trish. But I think Tina.
Okay. All right.
Good evening, everyone. I have a short presentation if you allow me to share my screen, and we'll get started.
Great. Thanks, Tina.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for the introduction. And we'll jump right ahead. We've done this before and often find it helpful to go over kind of the order of proceedings or operations. In the case of this evening, you have before you two public hearings. The first is the consideration of a text amendment application, and then the conditional use permit application, both for the Art Center. The reason is that you have seen in your packet, the CUP doesn't currently comply with the stormwater provisions of the ordinance, so the text amendment is needed. So as you see, while these are two separate public hearings and separate decisions, they are related and really interlinked together. So the first one is the legislative public hearing for the text amendment. The decision that will be before you as part of the public hearing will be the request of, to determine, I'm sorry, I'm not saying this clearly because I'm looking at two different screens at the same time. Based on your decision for the text amendment, will then relate to what happens to the conditional use permit, whether something needs to change with that, specifically the conditions related to that. So when we come back, we will look at the text amendment first, and your decision on that will again relate to the CUP. So you will likely, for the text amendment, we have the 24-hour window of time for comments to come in, and you may very well wish to consider the CUP at that same meeting. So again, ultimately, the text amendment will need to be decided first because of that relationship. However, you decide on the text amendment will affect ultimately the conditional use permit.
Tina, just real quick, one quick question. So to make this clear to us and to also, I know, the audience, what we need to, because of the public notice requirement after this, we can't vote on the text amendment tonight. Is this correct? And so we have to have this at a later meeting. So therefore, there's really, we may or may not, but it seems like if we did that, then we would not consider voting on the CUP tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you for saying concisely what I kind of bobbled. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So in summary, you've received the materials. The text amendment application has come from Dan Jewell. He's serving as the agent for the Art Center, both for the text amendment and for the conditional use permit. Their specific request for the text amendment is for a modification for the stormwater management, specifically the volume control provisions. And they're requesting that an additional provision be allowed that would provide some type of a relaxation or alternative standard. And just of note, staff has received and responded to a number of questions related to the amendment. You've seen some of this before, but a quick kind of at a glance comparison of the different draft ordinances. We've talked about 3 so far, and those were all advanced or referred to the advisory boards and then advanced for the public hearing. So as you can see from this snapshot, the difference between the 3, in terms of criteria, option A includes kind of a public benefit. There was some discussion as to whether that needed to be clarified, defined what a public benefit was. And in terms of the standard of compliance, they're requesting an alternative means of compliance, a delayed release. So this would be different and difficult to compare to some of our other projects or the way we have reviewed projects in the ordinance in the past. The other 2, B and modified B, do require a volume control analysis so that we could compare them with other projects. In option B, there is in fact a maximum that's not yet been identified, but there's a space provided so that you all as part of your review would identify that maximum. And presumably that would be based on the calculations provided from the applicant. So in terms of your procedural notes, and Mayor, thank you for your synopsis because you hit the nail on the head. The purpose tonight is to receive public hearing on the text amendment. Comments for the text amendment, because it's a legislative decision, can be received up to 24 hours after the close of the hearing. You've received comments from our 3 advisory boards as well as Orange County as attachment H. And you've noticed per your direction that some of the advisory boards have offered some suggestions for perhaps amending some of the draft ordinances. So I'll kind of stop there and let you begin your discussion.
All right, thank you, Tina. So board members, just real quick before we start, I'm going to open up the public hearing. We'll ask our questions or whatever if you want to first, but just FYI, I know we have 5 folks at least who are signed up to speak on the Arts Center. And so I think I just want to be clear, if I'm assuming, actually at least 4, I guess, speakers, I'm assuming that those speakers in the audience are here to speak on the CUP, which is coming up next, not this item. But if those speakers do want to speak specifically to this text amendment, just kind of touch base with Kathy and we can pull you over for this one as well. So anyway, opening up the public hearing, let's go to Jackie.
Just real quick, I wanted to ask if there was anybody from the Stormwater Advisory Commission here, because I think somebody was going to be here. Kathy, do you know?
Check on that. And if you are here from the Stormwater Advisory Commission and you're in the attendee room, please just raise your hand, the virtual hand, and I can pull you over. And I am seeing those that have your hand raised now. So I see you for public comment. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, so I know I see at least 2 people, council members, who want to speak on this item. And so do we want to hear from them first before we start with our conversation? So it looks like we have, Kathy, is this right, Dan Jewell and Katie Luvis?
But we don't have anybody from the advisory boards, because
Yeah,
I know
not
shoot.
that have raised their hands yet, but you know, we can hear from these 2 and then continue to see if someone joins us or if someone else raises their hand. So
Madam Mayor, may I make a procedural observation?
sure, yeah, please, Nick. Yeah.
Look, I'm not sure what you all want to do about this CUP. If you have tonight, you know that you're not deciding on the ordinance and an ordinance amendment. What you know you're going to do is to consider it, and that at a later meeting, make your decision. Now, with regard to a CUP, it doesn't seem to me that this board, this council, can hear any evidence about a CUP when anybody who would testify about the CUP would have to be submitting evidence that in large measure might be affected by an ordinance you adopt. So, you know, if I take it from both, just so you understand my point here, from both the applicant's perspective or someone who opposes the applicant. If I'm the applicant, today, I may not be in a position to provide any evidence that I need to show that I'm meeting the ordinance, because I don't know what the ordinance is going to be until next time.
Okay.
And you get the pick, well, and then you see that for someone who might oppose it. If they oppose it, they don't know which version you're going to adopt. So that's my procedural question.
So thank you for bringing that up, Nick. I mean, you know, clearly these 2 items are scheduled for tonight. So what would be your suggestion? We only hear the first item, or we hear the first item and talk through, you know, kind of how the council is kind of leaning toward on this, and then at that time decide whether to move forward with the second item?
I do not think the latter approach is appropriate at all.
Okay.
Okay. So my suggestion is that you proceed with this item, which involves discussion maybe even the development of some kind of consensus, then this matter is going to come before you. By that, I mean the text amendment proposal will come for a formal vote probably at the next meeting. And only after that is done can you have a CUP quasi-judicial hearing.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your legal opinion, which is highly valued. Mr. Manager, do you have a response to that?
Not really. It's kind of a surprise to me, honestly, but I'll defer to Nick. I thought you could vote on both.
Well, you could. I mean, understand, this is new for you guys in this sense. Usually you don't, I mean, you may not, in a lot of situations, what you do is you have an amendment that everybody knows how they're going to vote, or that's already been established. And then you have a CUP hearing. But here, this is totally up in the air. You're not even deciding that tonight. And so the applicant might be in a position to say, well, I didn't know that you were going to choose option X as opposed to Y. And so I don't have anybody here to talk to those elements. Or someone in opposition says, I didn't know which one you were going to choose, and I want to introduce evidence, but I haven't been able to put my evidence together because I don't know what it would be about.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. And is it partly also complicated by this fact that this new statute under COVID that we have to continue to accept public comment for 24 hours after? Is that also adding to this kind of situation?
Yeah, well, it's part of it. And unfortunately, I was not, and part of this is my fault for bringing it up now because I was not at the pre-agenda meeting that we had on this. But as soon as I saw both of these things on the same, tonight on the agenda, this problem occurred to me. I did have some discussion with Tina today, but I'll take the hit for not having, had I been able to attend that pre-agenda meeting that we had last week, I would have urged the manager and the planning staff to take that CUP off for the reasons that I've just mentioned.
All right, thank you, Nick. Mr. Manager.
Maybe we proceed and see if there are any objections. I mean, it's kind of speculative in terms of process at this point.
All right, let me hear from council members. Let's see, Sammy and then Jackie.
Nick, assuming, I mean, I don't know which way we'll go, but if we did decide to not go forward with the text amendment, presumably the applicant's done enough research and has enough knowledge to proceed with a CUP using the existing language, or are you recommending even in that scenario not to proceed?
Well, actually, there might be a way out here, and the manager indicated it. Look, if anybody who wants to speak today with regard to the CUP, that's the applicant and anyone else, if they have no objection, you know what I mean, to presenting evidence on whatever, comes out here, right? In other words, none of them claim, oh, we don't know what evidence to put on because we didn't know what you were going to do. If there's no objection, then they've waived their right to claim that they didn't have the opportunity to put on evidence. So maybe that's a question, that's one way to skin this cat that the manager has brought forward.
I suggest that we go ahead and move forward with this first item, and then we'll kind of assess things at the end of it, see how the applicant feels, see how we feel, and then we'll decide whether we move ahead to the second one or not. I mean, I think that's fair to all parties, and we can, and if anyone has any hesitation or problem with it, then we won't. So, Jackie.
I've just heard that there are 2 members of the Stormwater Advisory Commission either on their way or already here. They had seen on the agenda that it was at 7:40. And I'm pushing for this so hard because at our meeting at the Stormwater Advisory Commission, there were some real concerns as the planning board had, and I think as we all saw in the remarks from both of those, there are some real concerns about changing the ordinance. And so people from the Stormwater Commission are coming to talk about those concerns and offer up some alternatives.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jackie. It's this nomenclature kind of still cracks me up. Coming like they're in the car on their way here. It's so different. These virtual.
I know. Well, when I came upstairs, I turned to James in the living room and said, "I'll be home about 10."
Yeah. No, it's a whole new world. All right. So we know that we're going to hear from a couple of folks from the Stormwater Advisory Committee, but let's go ahead, I think, and hear from the other folks that are currently in the audience to chat with us. I know we saw Dan and Katie with their hands up. So Kathy, whoever you want to bring over. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, folks. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you and we can see you just fine. So.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm trying to keep a little bit of a smile. The attorney's remarks a few minutes ago caught our team totally off guard. We have been preparing for several weeks with expert witnesses to give testimony, other speakers in the community, members of the Arts Council to talk about the importance of this project. So with your permission, what I'd like to suggest is this. We totally understand that there will be no vote on anything tonight. We understand that you may actually defer any conversation of your own or deliberation on the conditional use permit to a later date. But what we would like to do, because we do think the proposed text amendments and the conditional use permit are so intertwined because of what we think is the importance of the Art Center to this community, the constraints of the site, and particularly that we've been working with the staff to try and come up with a very narrowly crafted wording of this text amendment in front of you. That with your permission, we would like to just go ahead and give our presentation, which would be germane to both cases. Have you hear those, get that on the record, and then you all can decide what you want to do later on, whether you want to bring up the CUP tonight or defer that to another meeting. We respect your decision on that, but if you're okay with it, we would like to go ahead and just roll into our presentation for both, because we do think the consideration of the project as a whole will hopefully inform your consideration of the text amendment as well.
Okay, so thank you, Dan. I want to ask Nick about this because, I mean, obviously, clearly the first matter is a legislative matter and the second one is a quasi-judicial hearing where we have to take testimony, we have to swear people in, et cetera. So it seems to me that we just need to figure out what's the best way to proceed, have a more succinct kind of technical discussion about the stormwater issue first, and then agree that we'll go ahead and go on in then to the CUP. But at that time, it kind of becomes a different matter. It becomes a matter of, the record and, swearing people in and testimony and everything. So we have to kind of think through how to logically handle that. Nick, am I setting that up correctly?
Absolutely. I mean, they're very distinct processes. One is a free-for-all, the first one. Mm-hmm. The second one is under oath. And the applicant has a burden of proof with respect to certain findings. You all have been through that before. Yeah. And everybody's under oath and all that kind of stuff. And so to mix it all together is unheard of. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, Dan, I mean, as insofar as there may be some repetition between the two, the second one clearly has to contain everything that you would want to have that goes toward that CUP, but the first one is the more nuanced technical, discussion of the text amendment where we can, in Nick's words, it's a free for all. It's a little different, so you tell us how you, and Tina, I know you're out there somewhere too. You tell us how you want to proceed with this first item. And then I know we're all very well acquainted with the agenda item. We can also break into our discussion about it, informed by, the other folks that want to speak on it too.
Question, was the presentation that Dan has prepared, were you all planning to do that during the text amendment or during the CUP?
Good question, Mr. Slade. We were actually going to do that mostly during the CUP with a little bit of it with the text amendment. We think it's important, though, that you hear the presentation relative to the CUP before you vote on the text amendment, if you're willing to do so. And if not, I totally understand that too. So,
well, I think, to be clear, Dan, we will not vote on, am I correct, council members? We will not vote on the text amendment tonight because we're required by law to accept public comment for a day afterwards. So I think what you'll get, the best you'll get from the group tonight is a real, maybe strong opinion toward what solution or not that we may all have a majority opinion of. And then we would move into the presentation for the CUP. I mean, it's my suggestion. I agree. I'm sure you have all your folks here lined up, whatever, that we hear both tonight, even though we won't make a decision about both tonight. Council members, does that seem like I'm seeing some nodding heads. It's kind of the way I thought that.
I think we're going to come up with some solutions, but not any solutions that we can work on tonight or that we can pass tonight, because we cannot vote tonight. And we can't vote on the CUP. The CUP wouldn't mean anything without either the text amendment or something to deal with the water issue. I'm fine with hearing everything tonight, but we're not going to make any decisions.
Thanks, Jackie. Damon, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I guess it sounds like Dan is kind of prepared to give a presentation on all of it, which is fine. And I don't see any reason why in the consideration in this agenda item, the hearing for the text amendment, which as Nick described as a free-for-all, why we can't just hear that presentation as part of this agenda item. I mean, yes, he's going to talk about, I guess, the Art Center and so on. That's fine. But this is a public hearing on a legislative matter. There's no reason why we can't hear all of it now. He may find when we get around to having the hearing on the CUP application, which may be tonight or not, that he'll be repeating himself quite a bit so that he can enter evidence into the record. But there's no issue, I don't think, unless I'm misinterpreting the law, Nick, that we can't hear Dan's presentation on this matter during the text amendment public hearing.
I agree with that totally. Everything you said.
Yeah, I agree too, Damon. I guess I just for Dan and company, anything that they want in the official CUP record, they might need to repeat. That was my point. So Dan, you can take that as you wish. If you want to go with your presentation now, that's fine. And of course, we'll be having public comment afterwards. So
I would like to ask a favor that we let the advisory boards speak first so that they can, so that they don't have to stay for several hours.
After the presentation, have them be the first speakers? Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Well, if the ball is lateraled back to us, then I think we would like to take the opportunity to do a fairly full presentation. And if we need to do it again under oath later on, we are happy to do that as well. So thank you for the opportunity. If we could, at this point, if I could ask the clerk to bring in the other speakers who I emailed earlier, and I'll read those names off if that makes it easier for you. That would be Preston Royster, Edwin Harris, Bernadette Pelissier, Ken Ryder, and Dan Mayer. And it looks like they're all here. So thank you. And we will roll through this. And again, thank you again. So again, Mayor, members of council, I'm Dan Jewell. I'm the president of Coulter Jewell Thames CJT. We're a civil engineering, landscape architecture and surveying firm based in Durham. I received a professional degree in landscape architecture in 1981. I've been licensed and practicing in North Carolina since 1985 and have been designing projects similar to this, including in Carrboro, since 1985. We've been asked by the good folks at the Art Center to assist them with the design of a new home right here in Carrboro, and to let you know why approval of the text amendment And later, the conditional use permit is critical to allow that to happen. And in fact, is likely critical to whether they can remain in Carrboro or not. The Art Center's been in Carrboro for over 40 years and would like to stay here for another 40 more. Towards that end, they've been working for over 2 years to identify a suitable site to build their future home and entered into a contract to purchase this Jones Ferry Road site approximately 18 months ago after doing an exhaustive search of properties in Carrboro. If someone would allow Mr. Harris to share the screen, he's going to bring up just a couple of images really quick that we can go through. If that's enabled.
Kathy, have you enabled
That
that?
should be, yeah, that should be enabled for all of our panelists.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, sir. Edwin, can you go to the site slide? I'm going to speak to that. Thank you. As a quick refresher, the property is located on Jones Ferry Road, right across from the Owasso Water Plant. It's currently undeveloped. Nearly 50% of the site is encumbered by a riparian buffer and an additional chunk of the site by a sanitary sewer easement, resulting in a very small area of the site available to construct a building upon. But given all that, we still have a proposal in front of you that works on the site and most importantly, works for the Art Center. The project design has advanced quite a bit since the concept plan package the advisory boards reviewed back in July of last year. We were able to incorporate most of the comments we received from those boards, and the majority of those boards now are recommending approval of the project from their most recent meeting. Most importantly, though, as we try and align the realities of construction costs with the realities of funding levels, the building has gotten a little bit smaller. I think you're all aware that we were granted a variance by the Board of Adjustment last year to encroach into the stream buffer. As we've refined our site design since then and reduced our footprint, we've actually been able to reduce the extent of that encroachment somewhat. But we are still committed to doing the things we committed to at the Board of Adjustment meeting, including stream buffer enhancement by removing invasive vegetation and reestablishing native plants. As Tina mentioned, we're asking for a small parking reduction request from the council, but believe we meet all the other LUO requirements save for one, and that is the annual stormwater rate runoff volume. What we have discovered after many months of effort and design analysis of the project and 8 months of discussion on stormwater management with the town staff is that this is a very challenged piece of property in that whereas we can meet 2 of the 3 requirements of the LUO for stormwater management, we cannot fully meet the 3rd. And under section 15-263G of the LUO, which is the text amendment in front of you, that is the total annual runoff volume. Absent some measure of relief from this, the project can't move forward, and the Art Center will likely need to look at other sites outside of Carrboro. I'd like to pause for a few minutes and ask my partner Preston Royster, an experienced civil engineer and principal with our firm, to tell you briefly about what we analyzed, and why it is not practicable to meet the total amount of annual volume reduction on this property. That word practicable is a very important term because it is specifically used in LUO 15-263G that stormwater management systems shall be installed, in quotes, to the maximum extent practicable to try and meet those requirements. The word practicable does not seem to be a defined term in the LUO. I did do some web sleuthing though, and found a legal definition of that as practical means available and capable of being done after taking into consideration cost, existing technology, and logistics in light of overall project purposes. And I'm getting trouble there because we have several lawyers on the call. We think that is important to keep in mind as you deliberate what we are in fact committing to on that front and how we are going above and beyond in other ways to mitigate additional flooding downstream, especially in the Rocky Brook community. With that, I'd like to introduce my partner, Preston Royster, to talk a little bit about the stormwater particulars that will be part of your consideration. Preston?
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Good evening, folks. My name is Preston Royster. I'm a licensed professional civil engineer with a master's degree from NC State and over 15 years of experience in the construction and design industry. I specialize in stormwater management, as well as many other facets of engineering, but stormwater management seems to be one of the most important nowadays. The majority of our projects are in Durham and Chapel Hill and the surrounding areas. In the past, we have successfully completed multiple projects in Carrboro that complied fully with the town's stormwater requirements. So we're very familiar with their requirements, in addition to the past conversations about this project. In case you're unaware, Carrboro has three main stormwater requirements. These are control of the peak runoff rate, water quality treatment, and reduction in the post-development annual runoff volume. Runoff rate and water quality treatment requirements of most municipalities, while reduction in the annual runoff volume is unique to Carrboro. There are no other local municipalities that have this requirement, as well as no other municipalities in the state that have an annual runoff volume reduction requirement. So with regards to these requirements, as Dan mentioned, we're meeting two of the three. For water quality treatment, we're proposing a sand filter that's below grade that provides 85% total suspended solids removal. Sand filters are used throughout the region and in many projects to reduce total suspended solids, as well as reduce nitrogen and phosphorus export loading, which are two of the nutrients that degrade downstream waterways. Peak runoff rate is the primary factor to consider when evaluating downstream flooding. Carrboro requires a reduction in the peak runoff rate for the 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, and 25-year storms. For this project, an underground detention system is proposed to provide storage to meet this requirement. These systems are successfully used across this country for this purpose, and we've done several of them, designed and built several of them in both Durham, Chapel Hill, as well as in Carrboro. So not only is this project meeting the requirements of the town for runoff rate reduction, we're also providing runoff rate reduction for the 50-year and 100-year storms. In fact, the peak runoff rate from this project for the 100-year storm is reduced by approximately 30% from the pre-development rate. So what that means is that we are, in essence, decreasing the flooding downstream, as peak runoff rate is the primary factor that causes that. So we feel this will be a big benefit to the downstream properties that are experiencing flooding currently during large rain events. The last requirement that we're having issues with that we're going to discuss tonight is the annual runoff volume reduction. As I mentioned, this requirement is unique to Carrboro. This is the only stormwater requirement that's not currently being met by the proposed design. And typical measures used to reduce runoff, annual runoff volume, are above ground stormwater control measures like bioretention areas, which you can see by the site layout that's shown. We don't have a lot of room or any room to provide any above ground treatment, and as well as meet the Art Center's program with regards to building size and required parking. In addition, other measures that could be used are infiltration devices such as pervious pavement with the correct underlying soils, as well as measures to provide evapotranspiration such as green roofs. As you may be aware, options for above ground treatment, like I mentioned, are not really viable for this project due to the constraints of the site and the program requirements. We are proposing a small area of pervious pavement, which will provide some volume reduction. However, its widespread use throughout the site is hindered by the existing soils on the site, the fill that will be required to be imported onto the site, and the associated compaction that will be required for the structural integrity of the soil to support the building as well as the parking lot. as well as the Owassa sewer easement. Speaking of the easement, we've discussed the possibility of installing impervious pavement or pervious pavers in the easement with Owassa as well as with the town. The issue we face is that in order for volume reduction to occur, infiltration into the underlying soils must occur. Owassa has minimum compaction requirements over their sewer mains, and by compacting the soil, the infiltration rates and the associated volume reduction is negated. Essentially, the soil becomes so tight, the water does not infiltrate, and it infiltrates down through the pervious pavement and then runs off the side. And then, let's see. So by compacting this soil, like I said, the infiltration rate goes down, and the volume reduction is negated. Green roofs and blue roofs are also evaluated. Unfortunately, the cost, which Dan mentioned as part of the definition of practicable, is too high for this project, and the project cannot afford them. So that makes them. So with all that being said, we're still not meeting the volume reduction requirements. With regards to the calculations that we've provided to the town requires the volume to be calculated using the SNAP tool, which is a tool that was derived and provided or distributed by NCDEQ. And its primary use is calculate nitrogen and phosphorus export loading to meet nutrient reduction requirements. As a byproduct, it calculates the annual runoff volume. And in fact, the way that it calculates the volume is two very basic equations that don't consider a couple of very important variables that are used to calculate volume. One of those is wooded areas. It does not consider the amount of trees on the site. It just considers impervious area. The other issue, the other variable it does not account for is infiltration rates of the existing soil. So if we have a site that drains well compared to a site that does not drain, the pre-development volume that we're comparing our post-development volume to is the same based on the way the SNAP tool calculates it. So if we have our site here has poor soils that do not absorb, do not infiltrate well, it's compared the same way as it would be if it was a sandy site and everything infiltrated. So that's a big shortcoming in the SNAP tool that we've not been able to get over that hurdle with staff. So not including the infiltration rate in those calculations, at least underestimating the annual runoff volume, the pre-development annual runoff volume from the site and the associated runoff from the site. So we presented several options to the town staff for stormwater control measures to reduce the annual or meet the annual runoff volume requirement. And only one of those options, or only one of those combinations, which was a green roof and pervious pavement throughout the site, met the town's requirements. No other combination of stormwater control measures that are viable on this site would meet the town's requirements. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, the green roof is not viable or not practicable for this site. In addition, pervious pavers throughout is not practical for the reasons I mentioned a little bit ago, particularly with regards to compaction on the site. So we're left with only one option that works, and essentially that option does not work for this project. All right, so with that said, all right, one more thing. We also presented an alternate method for calculating the annual runoff volume that EPA distributes, and it takes into account more variables than the SNAP tool does, and the town would not allow its use. But by using that, we would show a lesser increase in runoff volume, annual runoff volume, and be more in compliance with the town's requirements. But like I said, it wasn't allowed by staff. So with that said, I'd like you to consider the site size. This site is very small. So while we may have a high percentage of calculated increase in runoff volume, the actual volume is not detrimental to downstream properties. This site is part of a much larger basin that contributes runoff to the downstream streams. And in fact, this site and its associated volume is less than 0.5% of the entire basin when you look just downstream of the property. So essentially, the increase in annual runoff volume from this project is a drop in the bucket when you evaluate the entire basin. Another thing to consider is that the town has approved several projects that meet the annual runoff volume requirements. But these projects, when you look at the total increase in volume, it's over 20 times what the increase in volume is what the increase in volume we're proposing for this project is. So if the town's concern is really volume relative to stream health, perhaps a basin-wide solution is more suitable than a project-by-project evaluation, particularly with small sites that show a high percentage, but not a high volume increase. With all that said, the project is designed to meet or exceed all of Carrboro stormwater requirements except for the reduction in annual runoff volume. In fact, the project is designed to provide attenuation for the peak runoff rate up to the 100-year storm, and that reduction in rate is 30% lower than what the pre-development rate is. So this will definitely benefit the downstream properties that are experiencing flooding currently. So we would also like you to consider that this project as designed would be approved in both Durham and Chapel Hill. As I mentioned, the volume is a unique requirement to Carrboro that makes it not approvable here, where it would be approved in other jurisdictions. And as we've talked about, the text amendment is before you tonight, but I would just consider the language in the ordinance that does state to the maximum extent practical as a means to improve the CUP. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Dan, unless there are any questions.
I will, let me go ahead and bring this to the next phase then. Thank you, Preston. As he said, so we've been working for a long time with your staff to craft an amendment that provides a very narrowly tailored exception to the land use ordinance that will not be applicable to many other properties in Carrboro, and is designed to provide flexibility to make a worthy development such as this that has many community benefits and many peculiarities and challenges on that site. And a text amendment that can still serve the spirit of the ordinance while allowing this project to move ahead. Of the 3 text amendment options that the staff has presented, we prefer modified option B, primarily because we believe we have demonstrated, we have analyzed, and will implement volume control measures to the extent practicable, and need a bit more flexibility than being tied to a precise measure of increase. During the joint advisory board meeting a few weeks ago, a member of the Stormwater Advisory Commission made a very interesting remark. And that was whether the council couldn't actually approve the CUP without need for a text amendment, thus making the finding that we have provided control measures to the extent practicable. In fact, at their meeting a few weeks ago, the planning board actually took off on that line of discussion and crafted their proposing that very course of action. We would be very interested in hearing your thoughts on that this evening and any ensuing meetings that you may have. So before I hand it over to Mr. Edwin Harris, our project architect with Evoke Architecture, I'd like to say that we all appreciate your time this evening. Look forward to thoughtful discussion from you. And along with the 100 or so people who've sent in emails and letters of support on this project. And as I said, the text amendment is an important component for this project to move forward. We hope you will arrive at an outcome that allows the Art Center to stay in Carrboro for many years to come. And with that, I'd like to introduce our project architect, Edwin Harris, again, to talk just a little bit about the community building that we're attempting to do with this project. Thank you. Edwin?
Sir, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Edwin Harris. I'm the co-founder of Evoke Studio Architecture. I'm joined by my business partner and co-founder Billy Askey, as well as Terry Canada, who's not on the call tonight. Thank you all for your time. I think I actually have probably the easiest message to talk about. It's really about how excited we are for the project. I think this project really represents an amazing opportunity for not just the Art Center, but really the town of Carrboro to really be, to really put actions to words. This is a site that is a challenging site, but it's really an opportune site. It's the perfect site for an institution that has this mission relative to the existing Art Center that's in a strip mall that was basically kind of using what was left over. This is still a quote unquote leftover site, but it's a site that's situated near neighborhoods that really provides access. And in the time in which we live, we want to talk about providing access, respect for the ecology, respect for where we are. And I think this is one of these opportunities for the town of Carrboro and also the Art Center to really kind of put actions to words, as I said earlier. And so, we really think of this as a transformative opportunity for everyone. So the Art Center one of the missions and aspirations that they spoke to us about was providing something that is inviting and welcoming. And so the new art centers is basically really opening its doors and really wanting to be a lens for which people can, view creation, and then also welcome people to learn about creation and creativity and really being able to express themselves. We also wanted, again, to leverage the fact that this is not located in the strip mall. This is actually, near stream buffer, and really allow people to enjoy the indoors and outdoors and understand and appreciate, the connection to outdoors and the impact that we have on our environment and our community. And I think, opening this up and then making this a front door for the town of Carrboro, but also the adjacent neighborhoods, was something that we really thought, carefully about. And that was one of the mandates that was given to us by the Art Center. Because again, we believe that this represents a real pivot away from the way things have been, and really trying to become a lot more inclusive and a lot more accessible to everyone. This is the entry where we talked about increasing transparency and really allowing people to kind of understand what's happening inside, but also feel like they're welcome. This is a view from the communal stair that we're talking about that looks out into, looks back toward downtown Carrboro, but also toward the stream area. Again, we believe in transparency. We believe that bringing in light and allowing people to welcome themselves in and to really have that opportunity to express themselves is something that is conducive to not only the Arts Center, but also speaks highly of the town of Carrboro. And finally, again, this is another view from Jones Ferry, just really encapsulating kind of what we're talking about: a welcoming environment that's accessible to everyone, that really encourages creativity. So again, thank you for your time. I was going to be really brief. I think Bernadette is going to speak now. Is that correct?
We are doing a quick little mix-up, change-up, just because of the slightly different protocol this evening.
Okay.
But she will speak if and when we get to the CUP portion of the hearing. So, Mayor and Council, appreciate your indulgence and allowing us to give this thorough presentation. As we said, we think all of this information is important to both of the cases whenever you might hear them. So thank you again, and we're certainly here to answer any questions that you might have. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. So we're not going to hear from Ken or Dan at this time either then. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so again, public hearing is open. So first thing, Kathy, do we have some members of the audience to speak on this matter from the Stormwater Advisory Commission first?
I do. And Michael, Paul, I'm bringing you over. Just so you know, when I promote you over to panelist, your screen will drop for just a minute. When you come back on, you'll be able to turn on your screen or your camera and your mic. Is there just one person here from the Arts Center? I'm sorry, from the Stormwater Advisory Commission? If there's anyone else from the Stormwater Advisory Commission, if you could raise your hand.
I think Jeanette's there, Kathy.
Okay, why don't we'll go ahead and get started with Michael, I guess, Kathy, first. And are you doing the timekeeping right now? Kathy, are you able to do that?
I'll start the time.
Yeah, just the soft 3 minutes-ish. So there you go, Michael. Go ahead.
Soft 3 minutes. Okay, I will do my best. Well, hopefully you have our motions in front of you, so you can read those. I don't need to dwell too much on those, but like Mr. Jewell said, we agree with that idea of that perhaps it should be, if there's a desire to offer special consideration, doing that as a waiver of a variance is preferable to a text amendment, because we're the Stormwater Advisory Commission, and you've charged us with strengthening and improving stormwater management in Carrboro. We don't see this as very consistent, weakening the land use ordinance for stormwater management is consistent with the charge you've given us. So it's not, we can't in good faith make that recommendation. We think that we heard a couple of things from the engineer, that the project would both control the peak runoff for the stream, but not have much of an effect on volume because it's small. Well, it can't be doing both. It is a small property. We agree with that. We're not making a claim that our concerns are not that it's going to have a huge effect on peak flow in the stream or total volume runoff in the stream. Our concern is the precedent it sets for stormwater management as a whole in Carrboro. Volume control is really important, and many states have volume control requirements. Many progressive stormwater management states. There may not be other cities in North Carolina that do it, but Carrboro is not every other city in North Carolina. And there's a reason we are adopting progressive volume control measures like progressive stormwater management states do. It's because when you keep a stream full flood for a long time, that you keep it at full volume, you don't control the volume, that peak, that bank flow, the flow that fills the channel is the channel forming flow, and it causes the greatest amount of erosion in the channel. So you may not have the peaks, but if you keep the volume up for too long, it causes erosion and irreparable damage to the stream. We also agree that basin-wide solutions are better than small projects. We couldn't agree more with that. We'd love to see a lot of basin-wide retrofit stormwater projects in Carrboro to control the problems we have. But you start with small properties and making it, as I've said before, urban watersheds die by 1,000 cuts. They don't die by one huge project. So, you have to be concerned about the little projects, because if you start accepting little project here, little project there, little project there, that's how an urban watershed falls apart in terms of water quality and flooding problems downstream. We've provided our comments in the motion. You can see what we've argued there, and our motion is to not approve the land use ordinance change, but if you need to go forward to do it as a waiver or variance for this specific project, as Mr. Jewell said. So thanks. Was that 3 minutes?
You're good. You're
Okay.
good. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
So Kathy, can you see if there's anyone else in the waiting room that is here that wants to speak on this item?
Nat O'Connor is here from the Stormwater.
Okay.
I believe she's actually a panelist. She just doesn't have her video on.
Oh, there you are. Hey, Jeanette.
That's because I have to keep running back and forth between my child's bedroom to convince her to stay there and go to sleep.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. I'm actually mostly just here in case the council had questions about our stormwater comments, but I did just want to reiterate whether or not the council decides to go forward with this actual project, the commission just thinks it is a really bad idea to change the actual stormwater regulations of the town. Can you wait 1 second, honey? To change the actual stormwater regulations, because at least at this point, developers have to actually come to us, come to the council and look and talk about these things. And if we change the ordinance, then we don't even have to have that happen anymore. And so the commission failed to see a reason to actually change an entire ordinance for one project, where maybe there was another way around to allow that project to happen if the council was really passionate about it, that wouldn't result in future developers not having to come and see all of us and explain their reasonings and why they're trying to do the things they're doing. So while we think the project as a whole is not a great fit for this site, we think even worse is the idea of changing the ordinance. So, but I'm, again, mostly here just in case anybody had clarification questions or was a little bit confused on anything we suggested or said or anything like that. So Mike is actually the better expert to ask questions to anyways, but we wanted to make sure there were a couple of us here for you all.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thank you for your comments.
No problem.
Okay. So Kathy, anyone else in the waiting room to speak to us on this agenda item?
At least two more, I believe. Katie Lucas over now.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Hey there. Yeah, we can hear you, Katie.
Oh, good. Great. First thing is the immediate past chair of the Carrboro Business Alliance, David Jesse, is also in Cyberland hoping to be brought in to share a few remarks as well. Is that some, I don't know if the clerk is able to find him and pull him up too.
Okay, we'll get him over.
Okay. And then I just want to clarify, I have a message that I'd like to share on behalf of the Carrboro Business Alliance, and it gets to the text amendment, but it does so by way of touching on a few points about the Art Center and the CUP. I just want to make sure me speaking on that doesn't put you all in an awkward position.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Katie Lucas. I'm staff support for the Carrboro Business Alliance, which includes more than 100 enterprises committed to a thriving Carrboro. And they encourage you to approve the tightly worded text amendment and proceed with the conditional use permit so that the Art Center can continue adding tremendous value and benefit to our community. We know you share our appreciation of the Art Center, and that you all, council, are thoughtfully wrestling through the trade-offs in this decision, and that you're sensible to how critical your vote is for ensuring the Art Center remains in Carrboro. So with that, I'll limit my advocacy to 3 simple points that the Carrboro Business Alliance believes helps make the case for the approval of the text amendment. So first has to do with the parcel. This lot, it's nestled among some of the lowest income residents of our community, and when activated, will bring to life an extended downtown, drive economic development, and provide increased access to the arts for some of our most disadvantaged neighbors, including many Black and Brown residents. Achieving this is complicated as the site is riddled with easements and constraints, which severely limit what is possible, but the Art Center is committed to finding a way that works for all. So the second point has to do with the building design. The Art Center designed a spectacular building, as you saw moments ago, with sustainability at its heart. This was no easy feat given the site limitations. There's insufficient square footage for a surface stormwater pond and other standard above ground stormwater management interventions. The Art Center successfully navigated these constraints by incorporating impressive underground storage vaults and sand filters into their design, along with pervious pavers and other environmentally friendly measures that you heard about as well. These masterful efforts mean the Art Center meets and exceeds state and local requirements for a 25-year event, and actually detains and controls the rate of runoff for a 100-year event. And this brings us to our third point, which has to do with the text amendment, which you're considering tonight. While the Art Center's design effectively manages stormwater runoff, quality and the peak rate runoff, the first 2 of the 3 variables that you are hearing about this evening, the annual volume of runoff has proved to be an impossible hurdle. This third expectation in Carrboro is over and above what is required throughout the state. And these, from what I understand, any small undeveloped site in Carrboro with similar constraints would not be able to meet this third requirement. So as such, the proposed text amendment, particularly modified B, we have found to be a tightly worded amendment that would only apply to very few other properties in Carrboro. So this is anything but a free pass in stormwater management. Approving this text amendment would make it possible for the Art Center to deliver an exceptional, environmentally friendly green building that mitigates stormwater issues despite the daunting design challenges for this parcel. So just to recap, this text amendment, we want to applaud staff for taking the time to so carefully craft language that would be limited to very few properties in Carrboro that would ever be able to meet this threshold. And then council, from what we understand through this text amendment, would have great latitude to determine if other projects that were ever to use this lever actually have the noble purposes of the Art Center and such to be able to meet that threshold. So we thank staff for putting this text amendment forward and hope that you support it this evening. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Katie, for your comments. So next we have to speak. David, you're here to speak to us also?
Yeah, just briefly. You know, honestly, I'm just such a huge fan of the Art Center. I have been for years. My kids have gone there and taken classes. I mean, I'm just gonna, you know, be another puff piece for the project, really. But I have looked at this on an official level, if you will, for the Economic Sustainability Committee, and we voted for this. And I'm not a stormwater management expert. That's not my field. But in looking at the numbers, it looks like it just barely misses on the stringent requirements that nobody else in the state, you know, is enforcing. And I hear the comment about the 1,000 cuts, and you know, at the end of the day, I'm just remembering all the times I've come to town and brought my kids to classes, and then found other reasons to hang around town and seen other people in town. I've seen restaurants empty out because they were going to go to a show at the Art Center and so forth and so on. And, you know, as a huge fan of the town, I just felt like this was an opportunity for me to advocate on their behalf. If there's any way to keep them in town, and this is the only option they have, then I've raised my hand and I've voted for it, and I'm doing what I can as a citizen to help ensure its success and continued longevity here in town. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, David. Thanks for your comments. So, Kathy, do we have anyone else in the waiting room that wants to speak to us on this agenda item?
Ask you once again, if you're in the waiting room, please raise your hand. And the Mayor, I'm going to look at my sign-up list and look at the names that we have signed in.
Yeah, the only other two that I had were Neris and Marcia. I'm not sure if they were about the CUP or about this. So I
have a few that are raising their hand, and I did see Neris, and I just brought over. Can't remember the name that I just clicked on. I'm sorry, and I don't see the video up yet.
Okay, and Jeanette's hand's up, but it's still from earlier, I think, right? She already spoke, so I think unless she lets you know that there was something else she meant to say, she didn't. Okay, so we have. It looks like we brought over. Is Valerie Horton a new person on here? And then Neris also, but Valerie, are you here to speak?
Yes, ma'am, I am, but it will actually be my husband, Frank Horton, speaking.
Okay, all right, and we can hear you, we can't see you, but it's up to you if you want to turn on your camera or not.
We can, and this is in reference to the Art Center. I just want to make sure that we are speaking where we need to be speaking.
Yes, at this public hearing, you can speak about anything related to the Art Center. We'll have another public hearing after this where you can also do the same if you'd like. So you can comment at either one or both.
Okay, I'll let my husband speak. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Frank Horton. How you doing?
Hi, Mr. Horton. Fine. How are you?
Good, thank you. I would just like to speak on behalf of the stormwater for right now. It seems that if the Art Center has passed 2 of the necessary 3 things that they need to pass, why would we bend the rules and allow them to build the Art Center at the location and where they're going to build it if they don't pass the 3 necessary things that they need to build it? And the other thing is that is this really going to be fair to Rocket Brook? Because I heard some comments earlier about Rocket Brook may be involved in flooding, that goes to below, let me get my memory together here, Frank Portergram, and then it goes to Morgan Creek. And I was thinking that it might create some flooding problems for the families and the homes that are down in Carrboro. So, and I got one more comment. My other comment is that it's directed to Brother Harris. And he said that it was a leftover site. And if he can hear me, I would like for him to explain to me what is the definition of a leftover site. And I wrote it down when he said it, so that is a quote. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Horton. Maybe in a little while, Mr. Harris would want to address your question, but we're going to continue on here with the other folks in our public hearing first. So thank you for being here. Appreciate your comments. So we'll move on then to Neris Levy. Neris, we can't hear you yet, nor can we see you. We see your name.
Okay. Can you see me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Actually, yeah, this is about the CUP, and I sent you a letter, but for this to be on the record, I'm just going to read what I wrote because it's clearer than just speaking.
Neris, hang on just a minute. Neris, if you know you want to give this testimony at the CUP, you can give it now if you want to, but you'll also want to give it again when we have the CUP. So it's okay.
Well, it may just influence the stormwater. Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Regarding the application of the Arts Center, I would like the town to consider the value of the Arts Center to the community. Since its inception, the Arts Center has been pivotal in helping develop Carrboro's economy and making the town an arts destination. Furthermore, its contribution in the field of arts education has enabled underserved communities to have access to the arts, consequently resulting in those students demonstrating improved educational achievements. The proposed new site for the Arts Center is important. It is accessible to many of Carrboro's underserved communities, which in turn the Arts Center proposes to serve even more than previously. Finding a centrally located, suitable site in Carrboro for an organization like the Arts Center has not been easy. The Jones Ferry Road site is accessible on foot to many Carrboro residents, and its relocation within the town's boundaries assures the continuity of the Arts Center's economic contribution to the town from revenues and events. While understanding the town's commitment to its newly crafted stormwater regulations, which are in compliance with its planning for climate mitigation, it is hoped that the town and the Arts Center can work things out regarding this site, resulting in the issuance, hopefully, of a CUP without delay. The alternative not only leaves the Arts Center facing a delay to its plans to open in 2023, it comes with the added concern of increased construction costs over time and even the possibility of relocating out of Carrboro. For both Carrboro and the Arts Center, relocation would be a very sad outcome and should be avoided at all costs. We do not want to lose one of our chief assets.
All right. Thank you, Neris. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I see Jackie reemerge. Jackie, I saw Jackie in the waiting room. You must have bumped out and bumped back in. So, or
I think somebody bumped me. I didn't bump me. It was
accidentally got bumped, but you could hear everything over there, and then you came back.
Yes.
All right. Very good. That happened to me once. Remember? Like I lost.
Stop bumping me, Kathy.
Yeah.
I promise I won't do it intentionally.
All right. So I'm looking in the waiting room here. Kathy, it looks like there's one more person here signed up to, or what has their hand raised to speak. Jason.
Yeah, I'm bringing them over. And Mayor, there's one call-in number. I'm going to, after he speaks, I'm going to unmute the call-in number and see if they want to speak, because we had people, or at least two people, ask for call-in.
Okay, all right, very good. So we'll go ahead and go to Jason right now. Jason, you can go ahead and make your comments. So
Hi, my name is Jason Clayton. I'm the owner of 205 Jones Ferry Road, 3 properties up from the proposed site of the Art Center. I can actually see this parcel from the front of my property, and I would like to wholeheartedly provide and give my support to the application for the Art Center. I think it would be a great addition to Jones Ferry Road. I'd certainly love to keep the Art Center in Carrboro and would really love to see it in our neighborhood. So I'm giving my full support to the project. Thank you very much for your time.
great, thank you. Good to see you. All right, so Kathy, go ahead and check on those phone calls.
Okay. All right. If you are calling in and your last 4 are 2040, I'm going to unmute you. And if you want to make comments, you can now, or you can just tell me that you're not interested. You are muted right now, but I have you. You should be able to unmute. And if you are 2040 and you're having any difficulty making your comments, it's still showing that they're muted.
Yeah.
So I think what we should do is tell them that the 24-hour public comment will be extended. So maybe make that once we close. But if you're trying to talk now from the telephone and you can't, you'll be able to. You can call me tomorrow on my town phone, or just like you emailed me today at public comment, and we can accept your comment tomorrow. So I'm sorry.
Okay, and yeah, and just to be clear, that's phone number 919-942-2040. If you can hear us and if you want to make any comments. So
Lydia?
Yes.
Lydia, was Jason Toole able to get in? He's asked to get a link. The phone number doesn't match, but I'm going to send this to Kathy and let's see if she can troubleshoot it.
Yeah, I don't see that person as one of the attendees. So, okay, so why don't we we'll hold here for a minute and we'll wait. If someone else comes on, we'll let them talk to us. But in the meanwhile, maybe should we go ahead and start our conversation, y'all? Let's go to Jackie first.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody who came out tonight. I don't think that the issue, we have several issues before us where we're dealing with 2 conflicting goods, the good of the Art Center and the good of stormwater management. I don't think that what we're really doing tonight really is deciding yay or nay. I think what we're deciding is how to make it work. And what I'm hearing from our advisory board, several of them, is that they would prefer that we not make it work through a text amendment, because a text amendment then sets in stone and opens other doors. And rather than a text amendment, that we find a way for a waiver or a variance that would for this site. And that's what I've been supporting actually for the past month or so. And I think other people are too. I think that what we're hearing from both the planning board and stormwater is they don't want to change the ordinance, but they want to find a way to grant a waiver or a variance to make this work for the Art Center project. And they both kind of laid out some steps that would help to make that possible. So I think there's this buzz going around town that Carrboro is going to deny this permit over stormwater. And we keep hearing that, and that's the wrong buzz. The buzz should be Carrboro is trying to figure out a way to make this work.
All right, thanks. Before we go to Sammy, Kathy, are we still okay with this person who they're not gonna speak? I thought I saw you bring them in. That's why I asked.
one.
I'm sorry. I thought I saw you bring in the phone number, but if not, it's okay. So we can keep going.
I had their, it was unmuted.
Okay.
I muted them back. So I just
okay.
talking on them. But I did invite to the person, Jason, I believe. But I don't see it on yet.
Okay. All right. Fine. I was just checking because I thought I saw some.
Jason Toole is now on.
Thank you,
All
Kate.
right. All right. So I guess, guys, let's hear from this person, and then we'll kind of, continue our discussion. Sorry, Sammy. Let's go ahead and get this person, Jason, to speak. Jason, we can see your name, but we can't hear you yet. There.
Can y'all see and hear me?
Yeah, we can see and hear you now. Hi.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I was joining through your other platform, but I really appreciate the opportunity. I'll keep it very brief. I live at 212 Prince Street, so just down from the Arts Center, and I'm very sympathetic to the stormwater concerns. I know that creek really roars, during periods of heavy rain, and I'm also very enthusiastic about the benefits that the Arts Center brings, particularly to a community here where there's a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot of interest. I think there's a lot of kids who really benefit from the project. So I just wanted to say that I'm very sympathetic to the stormwater concerns. I'm motivated whatever we could do on Prince Street, to ease, plot to plot or home to home, some of the stormwater concerns. We'd be motivated to do that. We certainly want to be sure that folks downstream are protected, but want to be sure that I'm sort of boosting the Arts Center and saying that we're really excited about the project.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Jason, for speaking with us. Appreciate it. All right. So now continuing on with our conversation, and we're moving on to Sammy.
So I appreciate all the work that's gone into this by everyone, staff, the applicant, the community. We've heard so much from the community. I think Jackie framed it very well. It's a matter of how do we accomplish both of these values that we have as a town, the social one and the environmental one. And I hear the stormwater utility very clearly pointing out that changing the text amendment to allow for the Arts Center to build on this property would be the wrong way to go, and that it would be watering down our ordinance at a time when we should be improving it and making it stronger. So I think this all hinges on these key words: maximum extent possible. And so I'd be interested in hearing one from Nick in terms of whose responsibility is it to determine that? Is that a staff determination? Is that determination ultimately by the council through the CUP process? And I think that going forward in the spirit of what the stormwater utility is calling for and making our ordinance stronger, we need to look at those terms and do a text amendment initiated by the town, not by the applicant, after we approve of this project, if we get there, to tighten up that language so that we're not setting a precedent with the ambiguity of such language that the ordinance fails to do what it's meant to do. And so I that's kind of how I'm feeling about it. I totally agree with the Stormwater Utility Commission. It's death by a thousand cuts. I very much value staff's providing us with information about all the developments that have been built since this ordinance was put in place. And this would be the first one that wouldn't be able to do that. And it would set a bad precedent. And I think if we were to allow it to happen, it would have to be because of whoever is understanding what maximum extent possible means, but that we must make it so the ordinance is stronger in not having that language. Because after all, Well, properties come endowed with certain constraints, such as stormwater issues. As the stormwater utility pointed out, this property itself has a lot of hydrological features that it is the responsibility of whoever owns the property to care for. And as a town, it's our responsibility to encode that in our ordinance so that we are assuring care for the environment. So I think that we don't want to get into a situation where all these properties that have constraints, there are loopholes to build in and encroach on what we're seeking to protect. And unfortunately, it tends to be the nonprofits that don't have the resources to find properties that don't have those constraints, because those are the properties that are more expensive. And they end up being the ones that make the inroads into weakening our ordinances. In this instance, I think there's an opportunity to really make our ordinance stronger, in that we've had an opportunity to really look in a very tangible way about what it means to have language that's as maximum extent possible, that ambiguity and what it could lead to. So having framed it, or like further built on what I feel Jackie was presenting, I would like to hear from Nick about who determines that, and at some point from staff on how they are interpreting it, and whether it be in this process or at a later one from the Stormwater Utility Commission about how we should address that provision in the current ordinance. Just to summarize my sense, especially since staff said that a variance and a waiver are not possible, is that we leave the text as it is and we deal with approval of the Art Center by making use of maximum extent possible. In other words, they have identified there are degrees of improvement to what they originally proposed in terms of the pervious pavement that can be included in this project. They pointed out that green roofs is not feasible on fiscal terms for them, but I think there's an opportunity for us to understand to what degree it's not possible to them monetarily, and even for us to be thinking about, since we value the Art Center so much, granting money for a green or blue roof to happen on the Art Center, so that we are meeting both those values, the social and the environmental. So that would be a question for the applicant. What is the cost of a green or blue roof? So that we can better understand it.
All right, so thanks, Sammy. Before I go to Damon, so Nick, a question for you. Do you understand the question?
I do.
Yeah, give us your take on that.
All right. By the way, what Sammy's referring to is maximum extent practicable.
Practicable, yeah.
Okay, but that's what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ordinance does say that. The good news is that's the way it exists right now. And I believe that under that language, Sammy asked, well, who determines that? Well, in other words, whether the applicant has done everything to the maximum extent practicable. Who determines it? The answer is you. In what proceeding? In the in the CUP process, because you have to make a finding that the application for the CUP otherwise satisfies the ordinance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what the applicant would do is, under this provision, is to present evidence to you. You've heard some today, right? You've had at least a forecast of it, that they've done everything to the maximum extent practicable, and therefore they've met subdivision 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, then Sammy was also asking, or seemed to be asking, well, how the hell do you define practicable? All right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good question. What courts do is they look at the ordinary definition. It's rare to have there are legal definitions of legal terms, but the word practicable is an ordinary English definition word. And I will say to you that Mr. Jewell I don't know where he got his definition, but when I heard his definition, that made a hell of a lot of sense to me. You know what I mean? That practicability has to do with a variety of different factors, not the least of which might be economic. You know what I mean? If he read that again and all of us listened to it, you go, that's ordinarily how we think about that.
Okay.
Okay, so I think, Sammy, does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, Nick. So if we end up heading into that CUP process, it would be, we could have that definition again from Dan Joel to have that definition of impracticable. All right, let's go on to Damon and then whoever else wants to speak. Damon and then Susan.
Thanks, Lydia. I think what I wanted, my comments really are kind of extending on what both Jackie and Sammy said. You know, Jackie kind of reminding us of this interest in avoiding, if we can, messing around with the ordinance. One that we and the staff have worked over the past several years to really whip into shape. And in Sammy's, and of course, it was really good to hear from Michael and Jeanette from the Stormwater Advisory Commission. So I thank them for being here. And also from the community members who spoke on this issue this evening. And my question was really related mainly to Sammy's point about that language, maximum extent practicable. The three standards that an applicant has to meet in that section of the ordinance, the ones that we've heard about tonight, are the three that we've heard about. It's only that third one that uses the language maximum extent practicable. The other two are very specific. You have to meet those standards. The third one says you have to meet the standard to the maximum extent practicable. Only that third one uses that language. And I think that's really interesting and important. I think that language didn't just appear there magically. It was designed that way. That section of the ordinance was written that way on purpose, I have to assume, as the reader. And so that, I feel like, has to inform the way I think about one possible road that we can go down here, which I think is what Sammy is implying we should do, which is read the ordinance as it's written. We are going to be the judges in a conditional use permit application hearing. We've been tasked by the ordinance with determining whether the applicant has met those three standards, among other things. One of those standards specifically says, as long as they meet it to the maximum extent applicable, as determined by us, then we can determine that. As to the other, comments that Sammy shared about whether that language ought to be modified in the future in some future process or whatever, whether that represents some kind of loophole or weakness in the ordinance, I think that's really kind of a discussion or debate for another time, frankly, but I certainly take Sammy's argument there. But the fact is, we have an ordinance that was written that way on purpose. And that particular standard, the third of those three standards, is includes the language that allows us, as Nick said, to make a determination that the applicant has met it. So I guess what remains for me to hear really probably is most appropriate to hear in the context of the CUP hearing, which is evidence from the applicant and evidence from the staff about whether the applicant has met that standard to the maximum extent practical. Yeah. And I'm perfectly comfortable going down that road. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Damon. And just in the spirit of consensus on the council here about this, I'll say I'm in the same way of thinking as Jackie, Sammy, Damon, in moving on as soon as we hear from people to the CUP and having that presented as part of that process. I think that's the best way to go based on recommendations from all of our boards and our discussion and what we've heard here tonight. Susan.
Thank you, Mayor. So I too support the waiver that Jackie is suggesting. And I wanted to talk just a minute about what happens if the applicant does not do everything to the maximum extent possible? Who pays for that? So the Arts Center has made it very clear over the last couple of years that they really want to stay in Carrboro. And they clearly feel connected to the residents, the businesses, local government, and they want to continue to stay here and build on those connections. But I think that, we need to be really honest that we need the Art Center here too. And we've heard from, dozens and dozens, maybe 100 emails we've gotten in terms of, to what extent the Arts Center really is this such an important artistic center for artistic expression and education. So that, in other words, it's just a very symbiotic relationship that we have with the Arts Center. So it kind of leaves me wondering in all of this, who pays for sort of these needed stormwater improvements? Let's say that in order to be in compliance, the Arts Center needs a green roof and it's prohibitively expensive. At what point does the town and more specifically our stormwater utility need to ante up? And I say that because it's a way of, we always do this with the stormwater utility. It's a way of spreading the cost. And in this case, we're going to be benefiting this very targeted group of residents. And on top of all of that, it is by spreading the costs, we can do it very equitably because the stormwater fees have a sliding scale based on ability to pay. So it can be done much more equitably than, say, our property tax, what have you. So I say this because I favor the waiver. And I also hope that part of this discussion will be what exactly is the role of stormwater utility as these other situations come up where you have a project that is overwhelmingly in the community's interest. Maybe it's an affordable housing project, or maybe it's a project with shared space for BIPOC business owners, or maybe it's affordable daycare, and they can't meet the stormwater compliance issues. So, my sense is, can we be tapping into their stormwater utility funds for those types of situations? So I just wanted to throw that out there as part of this conversation. Should we do some kind of waiver? Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And just before I go on to Randy and then Barbara, Nick, I want to kind of talk about our nomenclature we're using here. We're not talking definitely about a waiver. What we're talking about is interpreting the ordinance to mean that the applicant has worked to the maximum extent practicable, right?
Yeah, you don't have to go there with the waiver.
So we don't have to say waiver, but it's kind of meaning.
It's the concept. I get it from Jackie. Yeah. It's a concept of using already what you have.
Right.
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 And then as Damon put it well, let's hear evidence at some point about this, whether they're doing everything to the maximum extent practicable, because we are then free to conclude yes or no. And if we say yes, then they've met the existing ordinance.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to put that out there that it's technically the nuance. Let's go to Randy and then Barbara.
Okay. Well, first of all, I really want to thank Jackie for resetting the narrative of the buzz, because we are trying to make this work. We've all been in Carrboro a long time. The Arts Center is iconic in Carrboro, and we certainly want to make it work. I want to get to what actually Nick just went and Lydia, where I was going to go, because it's not really a waiver. It may be that we want to be more specific about a variance, quote unquote. But I worry. I want to understand why the Stormwater Commission wants to explore the term a variance more than stick with the LUO. And my sense is that if we try and say that, as Damon pointed out, we can look at just the phrase to the extent that's practicable. and that language really is for us to define. I'd like to see if we go down that road that where we try and define what that practicable means for this project. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm concerned that the stormwater regulations that we're trying so hard to uphold, even though we may be the only ones in the state, that we have some way of clarifying why in this particular situation we are addressing the need with some varied response. And I just think that that's going to be important, not just for today, but going forth tomorrow and in the future, so that people understand this is not just a matter of saying, well, you know, they found that the applicant was able to meet the ordinance to the extent practical for number 3. We need to give it some kind of definition and just clarify. I just think we need to consider that. Thank you.
Well, okay, Randy, thank you. Just a quick response to you before I go to Barbara. In the context of this evening's proceedings, the way that we are defining that or analyzing that is we'll hear the testimony at the CUP that the Arts Center presents. And then in our opinion, Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, but then in our opinion, did they meet that standard based on what they present? It might be very different tonight with this group presenting or whatever, that it might be in 4 years with some other group that presents to try to say they can't meet item number 3, right? I mean, the difference is if you're saying we need to define what it means, well, then you're looking at those text amendments that we don't want to do right now. That's what those are doing. Those are trying to define those exceptions. And really, I'm hearing from almost everyone here, haven't heard from Barbara yet, but that, we kind of want to go ahead and move on to, seeing how we're going to define maximum extent practicable in the context of this CUP.
I think I'm agreeing with you. I just think it's what I guess I'm looking for would be in the CUP probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we're going to be hearing when we get to.
Yeah. Can I just quickly add something? I can answer directly to Randy's question here. I have what's called Black's Law Dictionary.
I've got it up there.
Which is what the appellate court will immediately go to. And it's very instructive for you, and it'll help you, Randy, because here's the definition of practicable: reasonably capable of being accomplished, feasible in a particular situation. Now, the only other observation I'll make about that is that now you start looking at words that, you know what I mean? You guys, what's reasonable? What's feasible? You with me on that? And so one way that you look at that is if it's, to what extent have they done what is reasonably capable of being accomplished with some in a way that is feasible in a particular situation. That's the gist of this one word, practicable.
Yeah.
And you all end up, the good news is you all end up deciding. And as long as it's not wacko, it is something that is lawful.
But Lydia and counsel, does the question really is then, does that meet the interest in not pursuing the text amendment that the planning board and the Stormwater Commission is suggesting?
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
It does.
Okay.
You don't have to change an ordinance here because your ordinance is currently written.
Right. That's exactly what I'm aiming for. So yes, and thank you for for clarifying that, because I just want to be sure that folks realize that because it's written that way, that gives us the room, the bandwidth to work with.
We are the
Thanks.
fact finder on that, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go to Barbara and then to Damon and then and then Sammy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mayor LaBelle. So I do want to thank our staff as well as the folks that have come in tonight around this project, Mr. Jewell and company, and the community members for weighing in. I am in support, of working this out for the Arts Center, as my other colleagues are. And I believe my questions have been answered, but I'm going to present it this way and see, if I'm, kind of lining up with you guys. So we're not really looking at a waiver or a variance. It's an up or down vote based on evidence presented. Is that pretty?
Yeah. As to that third stormwater requirement about maximum extent
Practicable, which we are not trying to define that tonight, right? Is that what was just said? We're not really trying to.
Well, we're not defining it, but we're going to hear testimony from the applicant, and then we'll determine as the fact finders
if it indeed is. Okay. Right. Okay. So I just wanted to understand that. So cool. And then the second thing, I want to go back to what Councilmember Romaine was asking. I think it was in reference to the green roof and the use of funding and stuff. Does anybody have information on that? Is that something that Randy, are you shaking your head? Is that something that's possible? Not, I mean, how is that looking? It made me think about it when she said it.
I thought it was really interesting too. I think it's a question that I'd like to ask Mr. Manager to kind of look into, investigate with the way our stormwater monies are set up, or the application process, or how we want to do that. Not in the context of tonight, but it's a really interesting idea that Susan brought up. That idea of, is there a way that, but I know I think there's some legal kind of things around, like how would we choose who would get that or whatever.
Right, that's what I was thinking too, and I guess you could talk to David about that, and then just kind of let us know. But yeah, that was my question. I mean, everybody's right on point with what I'm thinking, but I just had to put it in that for clarity. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to gloss over that, Susan. I do think it's worth exploring, having a manager or someone figure out the parameters around that if we have an interest in it. All right, we had Damon, then Sammy, and then I see Jackie's hand again.
Okay, I didn't know if there needed to be more discussion. I was actually just going to move that we close the public hearing and set aside these proposed text amendments and move on to the CUP hearing.
Okay, sounds like a good.
I'll second that.
There's a motion. Who seconded it?
Randy did.
Randy did? Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second. We still have, I think, Sammy and Jackie. Do you have items you want to add to this discussion before we move on? Sam?
Yeah, it's just I guess logistical in terms of staff when asked if they had a chance to review the applicant's reassessment of pervious surface, which apparently they can do more than what their original application said they could. They haven't had time to do that. So the question of, does it make sense to jump on into the CUP, or shall we give staff time to present through that process in a manner that does that process justice?
Yeah, Sammy, I was actually going to raise that procedural question once we get into that CUP item, because I think that's a really important question, about how we would proceed with hearing evidence on that point.
Yeah, let's open it up and we'll bring that up during the CUP. I think thanks for bringing us back around to that, Sammy. It's a good point. Jackie.
Thank you. Just in follow up to Susan's inquiry and some others on using the stormwater utility money for something like this. I love the idea of supporting green and particularly stormwater related initiatives on commercial projects. My concern is that we develop this utility to deal with things like neighborhood flooding that aren't very sexy, unless your house is getting flooded. But I think we can build on that idea because I think it's a really, really good idea. So I'd like to ask that we also investigate some low or no interest loans to help people do exactly what it is we're talking about with the arts center, to like help find ways of making it possible for them without tapping into the stormwater utility, which is already kind of stretched, and we're having to save up money in it in order to do things to like mitigate flooding in neighborhoods. So
Yeah.
I love the idea, and I think we should take it places.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think, Mr. Manager, you got that. I think that makes sense. So,
Got it.
okay. All right. So we have a motion to kind of end this, end the public hearing, and we're going to move on to the CUP. Let's go ahead and take a vote here. So all in favor, say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Me? Aye. Barbara?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
And then Damon?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Before we open up the next, before we start our CUP for the Art Center, I just wanted to say real quick to everyone that Kathy had texted me, and we're going to go ahead and postpone the cemetery item that was after this tonight. So just so we know that in terms of our schedule. So, all right. So
I can live with that.
yeah. All right. Oh, Mr. Manager, wait just a minute. Damon, did you have a question before I went to Mr. Manager?
It was about this CUP hearing that we're about to embark on.
Okay.
I mean, considering the discussion that we just had in the previous item about, especially needing to hear evidence on that particular point that Sammy and Jackie were touching on, I just want to make sure before we get into the hearing that both the applicant and the staff feel like they're prepared to, in fact, present all the evidence they want to present on that question. And this is related to something Sammy said at the end there in that last item too about, do the staff and the applicant feel like that they're ready for that piece of the process?
And as a follow-up to that, if they're not quite, can we hear everything else, but then understand we might need to get that if we finish that up at another hearing at another date. So just,
I guess if we just continue the hearing if we needed to, yeah.
Right, if we needed to, yes. So I guess, Mr. Manager, I don't know if we want to ask the applicant and ask staff.
Yeah, why don't you?
Comfortable moving forward in that regard before we begin, understanding that we wanted to hear their response to that. Now I see Sammy's hand up. So Sammy?
Yeah, I mean, I asked this question of staff. Their response in email was that they need time for the applicant to submit the revised application, essentially, because they have changed some things about it in terms of what is practicable in the physical sense. So, I mean, according to the email staff has presented, I mean, they can confirm or affirm that if we ask them right now, but that's what I heard them say over email.
All right, let's go back to Damon for just a minute and then we'll hear from these.
Yeah, just to expand on that. I mean, I think the kind of the point in my head really right about this, where we're going procedurally here is, I hope what the applicant heard in that last agenda item was that as part of what they present to us as testimony, we're going to be expecting to hear evidence to convince us, right, the judicial body that's sitting here now, will be sitting here, that they in fact are, meet that standard. So just want to, before we get into it, are they ready to get into it? That's what I'm asking.
Right. And I'm also suggesting that maybe they get into it on a lot of what they want to present to us. And maybe that particular item comes back to us if we continue this. So, but I'd like to hear from, I guess, staff, Tina. Well, Sam's hands up now.
Sorry, just real quick, staff, if staff, I think, has clarified this some, it's the difference between proceeding and doing conditions in the CUP process, or waiting for them to revise the application and just accept it in the incorporation of those new items as they reapply.
Understood. Okay, I hear you. All right, let's hear from I guess staff would be Tina, Mr. Manager.
Why don't we ask Dan and Jewel first, since they're the applicant?
Okay. All right, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we are prepared, and we believe we provided staff information in the last few days that they were they were requesting on how we meet to the extent practical. So we are prepared to put that evidence forth here if you want to open the CUP. I can't speak to whether staff has had a time to review it or not, but don't hold it up because of us. How's that sound?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dan. So let's hear, Mr. Manager, we want to hear from
Tina.
staff. Yeah.
Yes, I think Marty's prepared to answer this. Kathy, if you'd like to bring him over as part of the CUP materials.
All right, popping over now.
Thanks.
So do you want to open the public hearing when you're ready?
Well, we're getting, I think, a response from Marty here about this. So,
Okay.
yeah, Marty, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out how to turn my video on. My screen went blank.
Yeah, I guess that happens when they pull you over.
But you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you, Marty.
Okay, I'll respond and then work on the video in a moment. Yes, I think everything, based on everything I've heard, I think it would be good to move forward, hear all the testimony and evidence that's presented tonight, and go from there, see where we are at the end of it, and frame what will follow. I think in the context of the discussion of the council defining whether they've met to the maximum extent practicable, it would be good to receive the testimony and have a discussion about it. In part, when the staff in our response to through email said that we've not had a chance to review this yet, we've only received it a few days ago and just need to give it more full consideration before commenting in too much detail on it. But also in the context of what I've heard tonight, I think it in large part will be conversation, discussion between the applicant and council about what the applicant is prepared and capable of doing. And to not be too long-winded, what was submitted to us last week was adding pervious pavement to a portion of the parking lot. And whether that's enough, whether that's sufficient, or whether they should further explore more pervious pavement, more permeable pavement, and or the green or blue roof option, all that in the context of what I've heard tonight really is discussion between council and the applicant. So I think it would be good to at least start that discussion, see where we are at the end of it, and go from there.
All right. All right. Thank you, Marty. All right, Mr. Manager. So let's go ahead and open up this item.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and members of council. So the next item on your agenda is a public hearing for the conditional use permit for the Art Center at 315 Jones Ferry Road, Mayor.
And Kathy, I should have said, if you'll please bring James Thomas over. I'm here to participate, answer questions, jump in when needed, but James will make the staff presentation.
I think you're signed in as one of the town accounts, so if you'll raise your hand.
I think he's on number 7.
And also, Kathy, at whatever point you need to, I don't know if you're going to swear in everyone as a group or one by one or whatever. So
How about we talked about this. I don't know the easiest way. I think maybe just swearing them in as they come in, maybe.
yeah, because they're over there. They're not in the room right now. So yeah. Okay.
Hey, James, when you pop in, if you'll unmute yourself and turn on your video. And so for those of you that are in the attendee mode right now, if you do plan on speaking tonight, this will be a sworn testimony. So before you provide your comments, if you'll just give a brief second for me to issue the oath, and then we'll accept your testimony from there. So James, I will issue your oath now, and Dan, if you want to go ahead and do this at the same time, that's fine, since you're already over here. And Tina and Marty, if y'all want to turn on your cameras, we can get you all sworn in as well, just in case. So after I read this statement, if you agree, please say I do.
We can't see Tina. Is that okay?
Tina,
I don't believe that I need to participate in this, but I can be available just in case.
Okay. I can hear you, and I think that should work. Okay. So solemnly swear or affirm that the information you are about to provide is the truth to the best of your knowledge.
I do.
I do. I do.
All right, take it away, James.
Good evening, everybody. James Thomas. I'm with the zoning division. Just here to give a short presentation regarding the Art Center. Dan Jewell kind of stole my fire with his presentation, but we are here to discuss property in question at 315 Jones Ferry Road. Many of you know where this is, but this is just a vicinity map of the property in question. Few highlights about the property. It is zoned M1, which is a light manufacturing. The lot is approximately 1.36 acres in size. And the proposed art center building will be 12,600 square feet in size and will be 2 stories or about 34 feet high. The project is meeting the parking lot shading requirements. Actually, it's exceeding the 35% requirements. The plans presented, the most recent plans presented to staff is showing a total of 4 bike racks. This will be able to park 8 bikes total. These bike racks are actually located in the front portion of the building. They will be installing a 10-foot wide sidewalk along the front portion, and this will extend into the 5-foot sidewalk along the eastern portion. Parking lot shadings requirement is 35%. They will be meeting this requirement with the installation of 8 new trees that will border the parking lot in itself. Regarding the tree canopy requirements for the overall lot in itself, requires 30%. Or a little over 17,000. They will be exceeding this by nearly providing 23,000 square feet of tree canopy. As many of you are aware, this did go to the Board of Adjustments to request a variance related to the stream buffer. They did receive this in June 17th of 2020. This went to the advisory boards for joint review a couple weeks ago on January 4th. And this is actually, all these comments are included in your staff report as attachment E. The applicant did not hold a neighborhood information meeting, but they did hold a community meeting, which Marty Roop did attend within 2020. This is a site plan in question. Dan kind of went over this already, so I will kind of breeze along on that. One of the things that the applicant is requesting is a reduction in parking. This project would require a total of 42 spaces. They're providing on site a total of 39. They have provided written justification, which is attachment D in your packet. If the town council does choose to endorse this parking reduction, there is a condition 1 in your staff report that defers to that. As for stormwater management, I won't talk about this much. We've kind of talked about it a lot already tonight. Preston with Coulter Jewels and Thames talked about the sand filter vaults located in the rear of the property. This is a rendition that town staff was forwarded yesterday, I believe. This is in regards to a meeting that was held between staff and the applicant. And in essence, this orange is showing where the applicant is proposing to do pervious pavement. And this equates to approximately 2,400 square feet of pervious pavement area. Last night, the Appearance Commission met for a special meeting and to discuss the relief from the downtown architectural standards. And the actual Appearance Commission did suggest that the town council do grant relief from these standards. One thing is just want to make a note of this, but please note, town staff received questions from town council prior to the public hearing, and that these responses should be part of the record. This is the 5 conditions, the present staff recommendations for the project in question. If you have any questions of me, I'll try to answer them. The town engineer, Josh Dalton, is available tonight, and also Bill Rourke with McGill and Associates, who is the reviewing engineer for this project, is also available to discuss issues related to stormwater management. And I would probably defer those questions to him, to Bill or Josh Dalton, just due to the nature of being engineers.
Okay, thank you, James. Anyone have a question for James? I see Barbara's hand up.
Thank you, James, for the presentation. Can you go back to the map about the permeable pavement, I think, that you said you received? Yep. So this gold shaded area is what we're talking about. And my question, I think maybe Sammy or Randy asked this question about the OWASA easement and the permeable pavement. I think there was a question asked. Was that Sammy or Randy? Did somebody ask that question already? And was it?
I think Sammy had asked it, but
I asked it in an email.
By email, yes, Sammy or Randy did. But what's your?
I did. We both have in different ways.
What was the answer?
Randy asked one, and I asked one. Randy, you want to answer yours?
So either one.
Yeah. Do you want me to? Well, actually, it was Trish sent an answer.
Well, I tell you what, I see Marty's hand up, and Marty, yeah. I think answered the questions ultimately too. I don't know.
Okay.
Marty, do you want to address?
Well, do you want me to state what my question was, Barbara?
Well, I know it was related to permeable pavement, the OWASA easement, the maintenance of that permeable pavement, yeah. Who's responsible, things of that nature. So, yeah, I just want to one, point that out, because we do have this here in front of us, and two, to just get the answer right here in this frame.
Okay. So that was a good summary, Randy, I think, of your email. So, and Sammy's, your inquiries, but let's hear from Marty with response to that. And then we'll go to you, Sammy.
Yes, I can speak to that. I had raised my hand actually to let Kathy know I needed to log off and log back on. I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but my video is flickering. I'll go ahead and talk since I have the mic here, and maybe you're not even seeing it, but it's.
You're not flickering. You look good.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we're not seeing it.
It's driving me a little crazy, so I might log off and log back on at once there's a minute to do so. But
you're
for now, while I have the mic,
Marty, you're anything but flickering.
So yes, I've spoken to OWASA. Dan Jewell can speak to this as well, because they've spoken directly with OWASA as well, and. I know we heard from Preston earlier, and perhaps we will hear some repetitiveness, as we noted earlier, regarding getting this under testimony and as a quasi-judicial proceeding. But OWASA prefers to not have it there, but is open to it being there, so long as they don't bear the burden of having to do the repair back to the standard that would be required for permeable pavement. So they do have some existing projects in Chapel Hill that have have basically done something very similar. So again, I don't want to be too long-winded here, but perhaps discussion regarding whether they're meeting to the maximum extent practicable language might in part at least be around the amount of permeable pavement that they're willing and able to do. And with that, I think the short version of this is that OWASA is open to it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Marty. Thank you, Barbara. Let's see, continued questions for James. Let's see, Sammy, you had your hand up. Was that about?
Yeah, just very quickly, when staff gets a chance to review the information that the applicant provided about the permeability and the soils, which is one of the explanations given by the applicant as to why they can't do it, I'm mystified as to why they include pervious pavement over the pipes that Owassa has, because one of the explanations was they can't do it because of the compaction that Owassa does on their pipes, which makes pervious pavement not work. So if they understand that, then why are they proposing doing that over the over that section? So if staff could just work that out with the applicant next time we review this, that would be helpful to understand.
Okay, all right. Other questions for James here? Susan.
Good evening, James.
Evening.
A few questions on parking. So I'm fine with the going from 42 to 39 parking spaces. I noticed that none of those are compact parking spaces, and I wondered why, because wouldn't that allow you the opportunity to have more parking spaces in the lot?
That is correct. This was in the 3 reviews that staff did on this project. One of my comments to the applicant was, the ability to use compact spaces, and the ordinance allows up, I believe, up to 40% of them to be compact spaces. I will defer to them as to Dan as to why they chose not to do compact spaces, but this was a reoccurring comment from staff.
Thank you, Susan. Any other questions for James?
Yes, I did. I didn't know I was waiting for Dan. Yes, James, there's been a few people who have commented about the parking spaces for bicycles. And so I would like to chime in on that as well. So currently there's 4 bike racks, 8 covered bike parking spaces. There's been a recommendation from the Transportation Advisory Board to increase to 16 bike parking spaces, half of which would be covered. And I was hoping to get your thoughts on whether or not that would be doable.
Let me, I'm so sorry. Let me just interrupt for just a quick second. James,
Yes.
are we going to have a presentation? I assume we are from Dan kind of. No, it's no big deal, Susan, but I just think maybe what James will say is we can talk to the applicant about that. That's
I'm happy to wait.
Yeah.
I'm happy to wait.
Okay, so anyone else have any questions for James? And then we'll, I'm assuming, James, does it make sense to have Dan speak to us next then?
Yeah, I think Dan can do a short presentation.
Okay, all right, very good. So why don't we, if everyone's okay with that, no further questions for James, we go ahead and have Dan come forward and talk to us a little bit and address some of the questions that we have for them.
Kathy, I'm going to log off and log back on. If you can look for me and get me back in here, please, see if my screen will fix itself.
Bye, Marty.
All right. Hello again, folks. Dan Jewell, Coulter Jewell Thames. Madam Clerk, if you would, again, could you bring over Preston Royster, Edwin Harris, Billy Askey, Dan Mayer, and Ken Ryder. And only Preston and I will present again. Dan and Ken are available to answer questions, but I thought it'd be handy just to get them all sworn in at the same time, if that makes sense.
May have
And
missed.
I've already been sworn in as a reminder.
Right. I may have missed. Am I bringing Bernadette?
No, not Bernadette this time. No, ma'am.
Who was the second to last person that you named?
Dan Mayer.
I think I got everyone over. All right. Let me give just a few more seconds. Thank you all for turning on your video. And if you will unmute, and after I read you the oath, please just say I do. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you are about to provide is the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
You all.
Okay. Thank you. here we are again, and apologies in advance that we'll do the presentation again, although I promise we'll do a slightly more abbreviated version, since the notion of the text amendment, I think, has been dispensed for the time being, since we do have to put these things on the record. Again, I am Dan Jewell. I am a principal partner with Coulter Jewell Thames in Durham. I'm a landscape architect with 35 years of being licensed and experienced in the state of North Carolina. I've worked on many projects like this, including quite a few projects in Carrboro over the last 35 years. To begin, I would like to request that all of our written material previously provided with our application and supplemental information that we have given to the staff be admitted into the record. So that has all been part of our written evidence to support our testimony this evening. So again, we are here tonight at the request of the Art Center to ask you to approve this site on Jones Ferry Road across from the Orange Water and Sewer Authority plant. They have been good partners in the town for over 40 years, and they are very much interested in staying for another 40 years. As a quick refresher on the site, James did a good overview of that, but I'd like to just reiterate a few things to put on the record. The site is currently undeveloped. We don't know if it's ever been developed, but it is certainly encumbered with over 50% of the site being tied up in a riparian buffer because of a stream. Another portion of the site having an active OWASA sanitary sewer easement running through it, which leaves a very small portion of the site that's available to build on. And we're also dealing with, as you will hear from Mr. Royster in a moment, because this is a low part of Carrboro, we have very tight soils on this site. But given all that, and given the challenges of this tight site, we have a proposal in front of you this evening that works for the Art Center, and we hope that works for you. Edwin, would you be able to bring the presentation up one more time? Thank you. And go to the site slide. But again, as Mr. Thomas said, we have been able to meet the program on this site. The project has gotten slightly smaller since we went to the advisory boards last year because of budgetary realities. We do have a contractor on board who's helping us price these things, but even given that, we're able to meet this program on the site. With that, a very large portion of the site will either remain undisturbed or will be revegetated, mostly in the stream buffer area. We will actually be doing some restoration of the existing stream buffer areas. If you've been down in there, you know there's a lot of privet and non-native materials, and it's our goal to, over time, remove that and replace with native materials and create a nature and educational experience that Mr. Harris will talk about in a moment. We were able to incorporate most of the advisory board comments that we heard last year. In fact, most of the advisory boards, the majority of the advisory boards are actually recommending approval of this project. I believe you are aware that we were granted a variance last year by the Board of Adjustment for encroachment into the stream buffer. One of the benefits of the project getting slightly smaller is we've also been able to reduce the amount of encroachment into the stream buffer and the amount of impact to that. As Mr. Thomas mentioned, we are requesting a small parking reduction. We did in fact look at compact spaces. We would be willing to change some of the spaces over to compact spaces, but our study, and this is the reason, our study showed that if we made all of the allowable 40% of the spaces compact spaces, we would only gain 2 parking spaces over what we have today. So that was the reason that we didn't think it was worthwhile doing that. But if in your deliberations you determine that it's better to create 40% compact spaces so that you only need to grant us a reduction of a fewer number of spaces than we are requesting today, then we would be acceptable of that. A lot of our discussion on this project, as you know, to date has been over stormwater management. What we've discovered after many months of effort and design and analysis of the project and months of discussion with staff is not only is this a very challenged piece of property, but because it is undeveloped and we were going from 0% impervious surface that exists today, we can meet 2 of the 3 stormwater management requirements spelled out in the LUO, but we are having challenges meeting the 3rd requirement, which is the total annual runoff. So absent some measure of relief from that, the project cannot move forward, and the Art Center may need to look at alternative sites outside of Carrboro. I'd like to pause for a few minutes and ask Preston Royster, who's an experienced civil engineer in our firm, to talk a little bit more about stormwater, particularly about the efforts that we have gone through in terms of trying to meet all practicable measures to make that annual reduction finding. The word practicable, as we've said, is a very important term because it is specifically used in LUO 15263G that states the stormwater management system shall be installed to the maximum extent practicable. The word practicable does not seem to be a defined term in the LUO, and with some web sleuthing, there are various definitions, but one I found says practicable means available and capable of being done after taking into consideration cost, existing technology, and logistics in light of overall project purposes. We think that it's important to keep that in mind as you deliberate, particularly in terms of the additional mitigation we are doing to not contribute to additional flooding impacts downstreams, especially in the Rocky Brook community. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Preston Royster, one of my partners and principal engineers in the firm, to talk to you some more about those practicable efforts that we have made towards stormwater management on annual volume. Preston?
All right. Thanks, Dan. Good evening again. My name is Preston Royster. I'm a professional engineer, a civil engineer with a master's degree from state, 15 years of experience, and I specialize in stormwater management. And we've done work in many areas in and around Carrboro, and we've done several projects that comply with Carrboro's ordinance. As Dan mentioned, Carrboro's ordinance has 3 main stormwater requirements: peak runoff rate, water quality, and the annual runoff volume. Runoff rate and runoff or water quality are requirements of most municipalities. As I mentioned before, annual reduction in the annual runoff volume is unique to Carrboro. With regards to these requirements, we're meeting 2 of the 3. For water quality, the sand filter that's proposed is providing 85% total suspended solids removal. And in addition, it will provide some nitrogen and phosphorus export loading reduction. As far as peak runoff rate goes, this peak runoff rate is the primary factor to consider when evaluating downstream flooding. Carrboro requires attenuation or reduction in the peak runoff rate for the 1, 2, 5, 10, and 25-year storms. For this project, in addition to meeting those requirements, we're also providing detention or peak flow attenuation for the 50 and 100-year storms. For the 100-year event, we're reducing the peak flow by approximately 30% below the pre-development level, which will significantly help or will aid in reducing flooding downstream. The only requirement of the LUO or stormwater requirement of the LUO that we cannot meet currently is the annual runoff volume reduction. As I mentioned, this is unique to Carrboro. Typical method or typical stormwater control measures that are used to meet this requirement are burr retention areas, infiltration devices, and green roofs. We have looked at a number of these, as Dan or someone else mentioned. In our stormwater calculations that we presented to staff through the CUP review, we presented 4 options and provided calculations with the SNAP tool. None of the 4 options show compliance with the town's volume reduction requirement. In addition to that, town staff requested additional analysis, and we provided 8 more options earlier this month. And like I said, only one of those options meets the town's requirements for annual runoff volume reduction, and that is pervious paving throughout the entire site, as well as a green roof. And I believe Dan or someone else will speak to the financial aspects of that and why those options may not be practicable for this project. There was a question about the pervious paving, or the exhibit we sent over to Marty earlier this week that showed some pervious paving. That pervious pavement that is shown is actually not over the sewer, the new sewer line, and it is only a small area of it within the Owassa sewer easement. Additionally, it is not over the existing sewer line. The majority of it is not over the existing sewer line that's on site that will ultimately be abandoned. The other reason that we feel this area is most beneficial to the site is that it is the lowest, or the part of the site that will require the least amount of fill. So the underlying soils there would most likely match the existing characteristics of the site. The other areas on the site we're having to import a lot of fill, which I believe your engineers will agree or concur that when you compact that fill, you will reduce the infiltration rate, which will reduce its ability to reduce annual runoff volume. And right now, we do not have any control over what fill may be brought onto the site. And so we do not have any, so we cannot commit to providing pervious pavement with an infiltration system, which is what's required to provide annual runoff volume reduction on the site. All right, so in addition, as I mentioned before, the town requires us to use the SNAP tool to calculate runoff volume. It's limited. There are some important variables that are not considered. One is ground cover other than impervious surface, so woods are not considered, as well as the infiltration rate of the existing soils or the underlying soils. So what that does, a site that drains well and a site that does not drain provide or have the same pre-development annual runoff volume based on the calculations in the SNAP tool. We presented an alternative method to staff that was not acceptable or not accepted, but it showed a much lower percentage of increase in annual runoff volume. In addition to all that's been said, I would like to consider this is a small site. So while it is a high percentage of increase in annual runoff, the actual volume is not detrimental to the downstream properties or stream bed itself. In addition, if you go downstream just a short distance from the site as well as the increase in volume is less than 0.5% of the entire basin. So essentially it's a drop in the bucket. Another thing to consider is the previous projects that the town has approved that meet the volume requirement. As I mentioned, the total increase in annual runoff volume for those projects is roughly 20 times the increase in volume for this project alone. So if the stream bed or the stream or flow in the stream is the town's main concern, it should be a basin-wide analysis versus a project-by-project evaluation. So with all that said, this project does meet 2 of the town's requirements. The biggest, in fact, we are exceeding the town's requirements for peak flow by reducing the peak runoff rate for the 100-year storm by roughly 30% below the current pre-development rate that leaves the site. So with that, I'll pass it back to Dan.
Thank you, Preston. And just to reiterate a few of his points and clarify a question that was asked earlier. Yes, in fact, we are actually reducing the peak rate off this site to 30% below what's coming off it today. So we are going to be, if anything, helping a little bit that downstream problem at Rocky Brook. And to the terms of the test of practicability, as Preston said, we have analyzed lots of options. The only one that seems to work in combination is pervious pavers, which we are installing with some extra costs because we're likely going to have to actually import soil that will actually percolate because the soils that are there today do not. But most importantly, as I said before, we already have a contractor working on the project with us to help keep the design in check with the cost and et cetera, et cetera. And we asked him and the structural folks to actually look at the cost of installing a green roof or a blue roof on the site. A blue roof is a new technology to us. We did some research. We found out it's actually not yet recognized in the North Carolina State BMP manual. But what we discovered, it's similar enough to a green roof. It stores water. The important thing is, though, both of those systems, because of the not only the systems themselves, but because of the great amount of weight that they put on the roof of a building and able to store water, both of those systems would add roughly $300,000 to the cost of this project. To put that in perspective, $300,000 is more than half of what the Arts Center paid for this property. $300,000 represents 15% of the total project budget. That's a project budget that's already tight. That's a project budget that has already required us to scale back the size and scope of this building somewhat to stay within that. And $300,000 when you have an organization that has to survive and operate on the largesse of the community is just not practicable. And I will pull that term out again. That is the word of the day, is practicable. So for that reason, we are committed to doing the pervious pavers. We cannot do the green or blue roof, though, because of the cost, which would not allow this project to move forward. And other than the previously mentioned parking and volume reduction requirements, we do meet all the other requirements of the LUO, and we actually exceed the tree coverage requirements by quite a bit. We're going to be ending up with quite a nice park and green area along the eastern side of the site. And before I hand it over to Mr. Edwin Harris, our project architect with Evoke Architecture, I'd like to say we do appreciate your time this evening and listen to our presentation twice. And again, remind that over 100 people have sent in emails and letters in support of this project, and hope that will help you arrive at an outcome that allows the Art Center to stay here for many, many years to come. So Edwin?
Sure, thanks, Dan. Again, my name is Edwin Harris. I'm a co-founder of Evoke Studio Architecture. I'm joined by my business partner, Billy Askey, as well. And again, for us at Evoke, we really see this as a real opportunity, as a transformative opportunity. As Dan spoke about before, this is a challenging site. However, we really believe that it's a tremendous opportunity for the town of Carrboro and also the Arts Center to really kind of maximize the opportunities and really build on the purpose of the Arts Center and the town of Carrboro in terms of really providing accessibility relative to being in a neighborhood in kind of the nexus of a bunch of different neighborhoods that are walkable, right next to a bus stop, to really invite people into the Arts Center and really give them an opportunity and a place to really express their creativity, to learn about the arts, and then to grow an appreciation for the arts. In terms of our design concept overall, our goal was really, again, to create something that was inviting, welcoming, and really, again, inclusive of everyone, and inclusive enough that it really kind of puts the arts on display. We also, really embraced the idea that it was next to stream buffer. This is an opportunity that we did not have in the current Arts Center, and really, again, being able to leverage the outdoors as another way to express your creativity and also to enjoy the arts seemed like a fitting approach for the Arts Center and its mission to be more inclusive and to be more welcoming. As you see in this view here, this is the main entry, and the main entry, again, speaks to that transparency and really wants to put the arts on display to become this welcoming and inviting place for everyone. The connection to the outdoors is equally as important as to what happens indoors. As you can see indoors on the communal stair, looking toward the Alchemy Lab and all the adjacent studios, we also have immediate adjacency to the exterior, to downtown Carrboro, and the stream buffer to the right of the screen. And again, this is a view from Jones Ferry, just capitalizing and reiterating the interest and desire for the Art Center to be a welcoming and inclusive place for everyone in the town of Carrboro and in the neighborhood of Lincoln Heights and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. And Mayor, that concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening to it again. We know we had to do it to get it on the record. Our team is here to answer any questions you might have this evening. And we sort of suspect you'll probably keep the public hearing open, and we'll be back again with additional information that you request and that we may need to work out with staff. So thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Dan. I'll call on council members for questions, but I know one was outstanding about the bicycle parking. But if someone can address that in just a minute, but I know Marty has his hand up first.
I just wanted to point out as a reminder to some of the testimony that we do have Josh Dalton from Sungate and Bill Rourke from McGill representing, town engineer and plan reviewer. I believe we also have Randy Dodd available as a resource. I think he may be signed in under Zoom channel 5 because I don't see his name, but I believe he is here. So if you want to speak to Randy, perhaps we can confirm that that's him on channel 5. Thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, Marty. Thanks for that reminder. Let's Dan, I don't know which of your staff which of your presenters wants to address the questions Susan brought up about the bicycle parking, and then after that we'll kind of go on to others. So
sure. I believe the question was I know we are providing sufficient spaces to meet the LUO requirement. I know we are going to do some artistic bike spaces as was requested by the Transportation Advisory Board at the concept plan last year. And was the question, can we provide additional bike parking spaces? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah.
Yes,
go ahead, Susan.
I was going to say, yes, Dan, the Transportation Advisory Board made a recommendation to actually double what's currently provided so go to 16 bike parking spaces, half covered. And I was just checking to see if that's in your budget.
Can we, if the public hearing remains open, is that something we can respond to when we come back? Because it is certainly a budgetary. It would be. I'll go on a little bit. It would be a perfect project for. I know I'm on the board of Durham Central Park in downtown Durham, and lots of folks donate artistic bike racks. And I think that would be a fine project for the Art Center, but we will come back with an answer for you on that. Yes.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. So we're going to go on to Barbara next.
Yeah, so I have one correction for Mr. Harris. He said Lincoln Heights. I think he meant Lincoln Park.
Yes, I misspoke. I apologize about that.
Okay. So I want to hear more information about communication and engagement with the Lincoln Park community, as well as the neighborhood meeting, or I'm not sure. Well, I think it was a community meeting. I think Marty attended that meeting. Then I think there was not actually a formal neighborhood meeting. There were comments from the advisory boards about that engagement, and I know that there were concerns from the community members, some of which may be on the call tonight. So I just wanted to know how that was going between you guys. Thank you.
So I don't know if Marty wants to answer. I saw Dan's hand up also. So.
Just to confirm, I was at the community meeting, and with that, I'll turn it over to Dan or others to speak about additional efforts they've done.
Thanks, Marty. I'm going to bring on Dan Mayer, the director. He has really good knowledge of all of the community outreach we've done.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. We have done extensive community outreach. We've had 8 community meetings total. Yeah, no, we've had 6 community meetings total, I'm sorry. So we've had 2 community meetings that we held over a year ago, one at the Owasso Community Center and one at the Art Center. Both of those, we invited all the neighborhood people we could find and did the neighborhood mailing as to all the homes in the area. Then we held, also, we went door to door in Lincoln Park and talked to neighbors and put flyers on mailboxes and emailed neighbors and held 2 meetings for the Lincoln Park neighborhood, one with our board and one with the architects. So we have held, and then we again went to the Lincoln Park neighborhood to put flyers on mailboxes last week to inform them about this community, about this hearing. So we have walked the neighborhood numerous times and held 2 meetings specifically for the Lincoln Park neighborhood and have opened a dialogue with the Lincoln Park neighbors and heard a lot of their concerns and a lot of their issues and just general information, learning about the neighborhood and what we can do to serve the neighborhood, because it's not only about their concerns, but how do we have an impact positively as the Art Center as their new neighbor.
Okay, well, it's good to hear the number of meetings. I'm more interested in, I guess, the quality of the conversations and how those concerns that they had were addressed and have they been addressed to the community members' satisfaction. And I appreciate the effort that's gone into it so far.
So I would say conversation is ongoing, and we are listening and we are trying to respond. And some of it is dependent on what different code requirements will require. So there are ways in which we will be able to meet their interests and their needs, and there are ways in which some of them have been referred to other people in this town of Carrboro. So for things that like parking enforcement, where they had concerns about parking enforcement today, and then that was referred to other people who can help them today on that. So it's really a dialogue for the near term and the long term. And we are sort of invested in helping, seeing what we can do around this project and more generally to hear and direct their concerns as best we can. And we've heard from a variety of different people with different points of view as well. So we're trying to sort of accommodate a variety of different points of view at the same time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, other council members, other questions, comments? Let's see, I see Sammy's hand up.
Yes, just generally, typically when we do CUPs, we have a chance for the applicant to provide a response to the matrix staff provides on all the recommendations, both from staff and the advisory boards and the council if we make new ones. Is that something y'all will be able to provide before our next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I'm not sure if it's in there, but one of the things is the EAB talks about saving the 42-inch tree, and I think the response you have provided is that is possible, but it's kind of contingent on the earth that's going to be moved around it. I would just encourage y'all to try to keep the tree. A lot of times developers will say it's not possible. I think of 300 East Main, the trees that are abutting the buildings, and everyone was saying they're going to die, and they're still there. Thank you for the numbers on the cost of the green and blue roof. It puts things more into perspective on the feasibility of even if the town would be able to front the money and as a grant or a loan or through some other means. Do you have numbers on cost for the permeable pavement portion of this? It sounds like you're importing soil to an area, and then there's y'all are explaining that for other parts of the property it's not possible because the existing soils would be compacted. But would it be possible to do what you're doing in the area that you will be doing permeable pavement? In other words, bring in more permeable soil in the same way that you're already doing, planning to do? And what do those costs represent?
Sure, I can address that right now. The extent of the permeable pavers that we've currently shown that we provided staff is probably a $30,000 to $40,000 add on the cost of just standard asphalt paving. As we said, a good portion of that is going to be the need to actually bring in soils that the water can percolate through, because the water does not percolate through the soils that are out there today. So you know, that would be, if we expanded those, that would be you know, sort of just that on top of that. And keep in mind, we're so far we've just been talking about the costs associated with meeting the total annual volume. If you look at the plans, you'll notice that we're putting in a very extensive, robust series of underground tanks and sand filters to capture all that stormwater, treat it for grit and nutrients and things of that nature, and hold that water back again so it does not add to the flow in the creek. And those tanks and all that stuff probably add another $202,000 to $250,000 to the cost of the project. So stormwater management is not an inexpensive thing to do. I'll just put it in perspective. I think you all know we did both Shelton Station and the what was formerly known as the PTA Thrift Shop. Shelton Station has nearly $1 million worth of stormwater management on it, mostly underground. And the PTA Thrift Shop is probably somewhere in the $600,000 to $700,000 range at the end of the day. So it's I know the town takes it seriously, but it takes serious effort to put it in place.
Thanks, Dan. And just to follow up, the $30,000 to $40,000 you describe is for what you're planning, or would that be for the whole parking lot?
That's for what we're planning.
Okay, so it'd be you know, that times whatever extra square footage. Thanks for that information. I guess may be obvious, but the information that the applicant has shared in terms of cost to the green and blue roof and feasibility in terms of the physical reductions that can be accomplished, but along with the costs that the applicant has described, I would like for either staff or our town engineer to track that and share their perspective on the cost and feasibility of those things as a part of our doing the due diligence and seeing if this is practicable or not. So those are my initial responses. There's been a lot of feedback from our advisory boards. I look forward to hearing back from the applicant on their response to those. And that's all I've got for now.
Great. Thank you, Sammy. Got Damon next and then Randy.
Thanks, Lydia. I'll be very quick. I just want to follow up on the request that Susan Romaine made earlier. I would normally ask this by email, but since we're in the public hearing, I probably should do it here. So it's on the record. But just to echo Susan's request that you consider the TAB, the Transportation Advisory Board's recommendation to provide 16 bicycle parking spaces rather than 8. I believe there are 8 shown in the plans now. It's unclear to me from looking at the plans if the 8 existing spaces are covered or not. So if you could also just clarify that. And then just one note about the idea of providing so-called artistic bike spaces. One issue we've seen with some other projects here and in other jurisdictions is that those don't often and tend to be useful bicycle parking spaces. So if you are able to provide additional bicycle parking, which I really hope you will, please make sure that they're useful. And then the question of why the Arts Center land use classification in our ordinance doesn't require bicycle parking, I think is very curious, and it's not really neither here nor there for you all in your application today, but it's something I'll be asking the town staff about, I think, at some point. Thanks.
Thank you. And I did get a bit of clarification texted to me from one of my folks who's actually looking at plans instead of looking at you, just to let you know. The 8 bike racks we have shown actually provide 16 parking spaces. So they provide parking on both sides. So I don't know if that helps answer the question, if that's where you're trying to get or not. But
I guess the issue is that what I'm seeing on the plans are 4 racks, which would provide 8 spaces. Maybe we've been given incorrect information.
We will clarify that. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also the idea of the covered too. So thank you. Let's see, Randy.
Yeah, well, thank you. And Damon, actually, I really appreciate you saying that, because that's what was on my list. And Dan, I appreciate you saying that that what it looks like is that there are 16 spaces with 8 racks, or four sets of racks, if we could find out about that. And I also appreciate Damon for saying about the artistic racks, because sometimes they really don't work. But I love that idea, Dan, and I think that that's something that might be very interesting for community folks, as well as the Art Center to be involved with. And just getting to what Susan was saying earlier, and I'm just going to throw this out because I just want to make sure that this is said. You know, there's, and Sammy, you might want to make comment about this, but there's climate monies and projects in the county, and I don't know if that is something, if the roof was prepared, and Dan, this is the part that's for you, if the roof had to have some kind of preparation so that potentially in future it could have a green or a blue roof, is that something that could be looked at? And then, Sammy, my question for you is just whether or not county projects with that involve the climate tax are something that might be useful. So, Dan, would you just let me know if you could, if roof readiness is something that could be achieved?
We can look at that, and we can come back to you with what that incremental cost would be. As I said earlier, though, the biggest part of the cost of a green roof or a blue roof is not actually the media and the plants, or the blue roof is actually gravel with that gets water and it runs off slowly. It's actually the beefing up the structure, the steel and all of that sort of thing to hold that weight up. So we'll certainly look at what it would take to sort of make that green roof ready, and maybe have a number for you on that when we come back.
That would be great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Just to respond to Randy.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that it's included in one of the recommendations from the EAB that you have it solar ready, but also look into the county's grant for climate, which is I think the application's out right now. And also the EAB offered help with figuring out other solar solutions.
Yeah, and that was the reason I raised it, because it would seem to me that not only right now, but going into the future, since the county has funds for climate mitigation projects, something like this might be well worth looking at and planning for. So thanks to both of you.
All right, thanks, Randy. Edwin, did I see your hand up to say something?
You did. I was just going to reiterate the question that Randy had about what steps would be required in order to kind of make it green roof ready. And so ultimately the structure of the building would have to get redesigned to support that weight, as we spoke about before. Based on just the rough calculations that we have so far, we have to increase the structure of the building by a minimum of 30%. So that's the columns, that's the structure. And then on top of that, the actual roof membrane to support whether it's water or soil would also have to be thicker to resist, kind of puncture and stuff like that. So just to provide a little bit more kind of background, that's what would be required in order to make that happen. We can provide more specific numbers in terms of the cost of steel. Right now, like I said, I believe the tonnage, we're somewhere around 50 tons of steel currently for the building. And so, we'd be growing that substantially just based off that.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Edwin.
Appreciate it. All right, council members, any other questions? I see Susan.
I know it's late, and I have just one really quick question. I wanted to follow up on something that Barbara said about the neighborhood engagement. And Dan, I really appreciate so much the outreach that you are doing. And Edwin, I wanted to say one of the things that most excites me about this project is that it is in neighborhoods that have historically been very, very underserved. So my question, maybe it's for Dan, but I'm curious if there's been any conversation about, these neighborhoods, of course, folks are going to be inconvenienced by parking and additional traffic, what have you. Has there been conversation about providing discounted or preferred access programming for neighbors in the immediate area?
We have discussed that among our staff, but we really are still at a very initial stage where we want to know what the neighbors want, what programs the neighbors would most appreciate. So we're sort of at that stage of not sort of assuming anything about programming, but really wanting to get more conversation about what are the needs of the neighborhood and how do we provide programs that are affordable, accessible to all the neighbors. So yes, we will go there, but we're sort of at a more initial conversation about what are the best ways in which we can serve that neighborhood in what program, with what programs. So, is it after school care? Is it direct art lessons for kids? Is it a program for seniors? What are the programs that would best serve that neighborhood and all that neighborhood? So we're sort of still in that point of having that conversation rather than making assumptions. So yes, we will go to that, and affordability is always an important threshold and question to what we do. And we will fundraise to make things affordable, and we do that all the time. So that is an important thing, and we will be considerate of that neighborhood in all the ways in which we can. And you mentioned parking and traffic, and that is a concern, and we've heard the neighborhood, and we want to respond to that as well as through programming. So there are different kinds of questions, but the goal is that we have as few impediments to participating in the Art Center as possible, but also what are we offering that is of value to that neighborhood and to the neighbors, to all the neighbors, and then how do we provide that? So we're at a very initial stage of, are they our current programs, or are they different programs, or are they a modification of our programs? And we want to be thoughtful about approaching all of those questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks for that question. Thank you, Dan. Let's see, Sammy.
One more question is the permeable pavement that y'all are now proposing to do. So what percentage will it cut off of the 875% that was the original plan, exceeding the 200% that the ordinance says must be met? And would you be able to share physically where, how much other area, excluding the compacted area above the pipes, with staff that could be done? Because there's the question of feasibility in terms of costs the Art Center can take on, but there's a potential for for that to be augmented, as we've talked about, perhaps through a grant or a loan. So we could fully understand how most to meet the spirit of or meet the ordinance, not the spirit, meet the ordinance.
All right, thank you, Sammy.
We will bring that back to you. Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, Dan. All right, council members, if someone would like to make a motion to continue the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Sammy, second by Barbara. All in favor, say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
Me? Aye. Susan?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
And Barbara?
Aye.
Okay, and Kathy, at this time, do we have a sense of when that date might be?
That's what I was going to ask Nick if he would weigh in. I'm not sure if y'all have to have a date certain when you continue the public hearing. Excuse me.
Also for staff to have time to follow up with a lot of things.
Right. Nick, do we have to have a date certain right now when we continue the
Well, if you
public?
want to play it safe, set a date and you continue it from that date.
Okay, so Kathy, you want to do it in 2 weeks or
Yeah, March 9.
March 9? Yeah.
Or 16, yeah.
Let's do March. So we'll go ahead and do March 9, and if we need to move it on from then, I guess we could, right? Whatever you all are looking at would you rather do 9 or 16? I mean, okay. March 9, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, we just need to keep March 2 open. So March
Okay,
9.
right. Okay. All right. So we're continuing it to March 9th then, y'all. Everyone who's not on the council, because we have a couple of just very quick matters. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you 9th. So take care. All right, council members, we just have two brief, maybe brief, but the two appointments. So Kathy, can you fill us in on that? And then we have by the council members. I know Barbara had one short item she wanted to ask us about. Go ahead, Kathy.
The Transportation Advisory Board, do you want me to just announce the top candidates? There were clear majorities for the Transportation Advisory Board and Greenways. So for Transportation Advisory Board, the top three were Kumi Davis, Lenore Jones Pareto, and David Swan.
Okay. So those were the ones for the tab.
That's right.
Does someone want to make a motion for that slate? I see Sammy's hand up.
I'd asked, and what I mentioned to y'all over email that I wanted to consider holding, because this is an advisory board that we will be filling all the positions. And it's one that also doesn't meet diversity in a way that reflects the town itself. And so I was suggesting that we hold one position vacant to allow for especially Latino and Asian representation, hopefully. So I wanted to get a sense from the council to see if there's appetite for that.
I mean, what seat are we holding open? I mean, we have voted on 3 people.
Yes, so that's part of the question is maybe Kathy, if you've got a sense of which are the top 2, or we could postpone and revote solely on 2 for next meeting.
I don't think there's consensus on that.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that because we've already taken the vote. We do have diversity with these candidates. Now, we don't have Latina, Asian, but that's on us to go out and find that. We had this long conversation before the last time we talked about this. Everybody was in on the conversation about how we would move forward so we would not have to hold seats open.
All right, let me just kind of chime back in here again. So I think, and I would agree with the statements that have been said that while we may not have the specific type of diversity that Sammy's talking about, I felt like these applications, we did achieve some diversity that we've been working toward. And I know that I think the third application was someone was the chair who's wanting to kind of re-up again. So of those, I think I would look for someone to make a motion to either accept those, or Sammy can make his motion, but Sammy doesn't find as much support for your motion. So
I move we accept them.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Jackie.
All right, so Jackie moved that we accept the 3 that Kathy said. Randy votes for a second. All in favor say aye. Randy?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Me? Aye. Sammy?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
And then Barbara?
Aye.
Okay, all right, and then how about Greenways, Kathy?
All right, for the Greenways, the top 4 were Allison West, Meredith Moravati, Maheen Manley, and Satya Kalapelli.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion for those four?
I move that we approve those 4 nominations.
Motion by-
Second.
Second by, was that you, Randy?
Mhm.
Favor say aye, Randy.
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Me, aye. Sammy?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Damon?
Aye.
And Barbara?
Aye.
Okay, and then matters by council, I think Barbara had something she wanted to mention to us.
I think I'm going to talk to you about that first, Lydia, and then, we'll
Okay.
path forward.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
Okay, motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Barbara, second by Randy. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Now, well, I should say this real quick. I sent out that email about next week. Give some response back if you would. Next week, next Tuesday night, we have a closed session. So,
Oh, about the questions.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Y'all take care.
You too. Bye.